One wrong text to the wrong man, and the Mafia king came knocking. She thought she was cursing out her cheating boyfriend. Instead, her message landed on the phone of the most dangerous man in the city, a man whose name alone made grown men whisper. 3 minutes later, black SUVs surrounded her building. 6 minutes later, he was standing in her lobby, asking her name like he already owned it. Avery Cole sent one angry text. It rewrote her entire life. If you enjoy stories about dangerous men, forbidden bonds, and love born from chaos, stay with me until the very end. Smash that like button and drop the name of the city you're watching from in the comments so I can see how far this story has traveled. Avery Cole had always believed that bad news came dressed up. A doctor with a clipboard, a cop at the door, a letter in heavy paper. Something, at least, that gave you a second to brace. What nobody ever told her was that the worst news of her life would show up on a Tuesday night in a grease-stained sweatshirt, smelling like somebody else's perfume, holding a key that didn't fit the lock anymore because she'd changed it 40 minutes earlier. Avery, baby, open the door. Marcus's voice came through the wood flat and tired, like she was the one being unreasonable, like she hadn't just spent 2 hours sitting on the bathroom tile of apartment 4B with her phone in her lap, reading 8 months of text messages between her boyfriend and a woman named Sasha, who apparently thought it was cute to sign off with little heart emojis and the phrase, "Miss you already, Daddy." She didn't answer. She was sitting on the floor in the hallway on the other side of that door, knees up to her chest, the phone glowing in her hand. The locksmith had left 20 minutes ago, and she'd tipped him $40 she couldn't afford because he'd looked at her face and said very gently, "You okay, miss?" And she hadn't been able to answer without her throat closing. "Avery, come on, this is stupid. Let me in and we can talk about it." Talk about it. She almost laughed. There was a hysterical little hiccup rising in her chest, and she pressed her fist against her mouth to keep it down. Talk about it. Like she'd overreacted to him leaving his socks on the couch. Like Sasha was a misunderstanding, like the photos on his phone, the hotel sheets, the smirk, the second phone she'd found in the glove box when she borrowed his car last weekend, were all something they could work through over a bottle of wine and a long conversation. "I know you're in there. I can hear you breathing." "I'm not breathing," she whispered into her knees, and then she did laugh. One sharp, wet sound. He rattled the handle. Hard. Harder. "Avery, I swear to God, if you don't open this door, you'll what?" She was on her feet before she knew she'd moved. "You'll what, Marcus?" Silence on the other side. That was the thing about Marcus. He was all temperature and no heat. He ran cold, then warm, then cold again. And every time she thought she had the pattern figured out, he changed it on her. 2 years of learning his weather. "Just open the door." "Your stuff is in the hallway downstairs," she said. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. "In the blue bags? The ones from Target? I put your PlayStation on top so nobody would steal it because I'm apparently still a considerate person, Marcus. Unlike some people." "Avery, go home, Marcus. This is my home." "Not anymore." She heard him breathing. She heard the soft, wet sound of him swallowing. And then she heard something she hadn't expected. She heard him laugh, short, ugly. "You're really doing this? Over a girl?" "Over Sasha," she said. "Over 8 months of Sasha? Over the second phone? Over the hotel receipts? Over you telling me you were in Denver for work when you were at the W on Lexington? Do you want me to keep going? Because I have a list. I made a list while I was waiting for the locksmith." The silence this time was longer, heavier. When he spoke again, his voice had dropped into that register she used to think was intimate and now recognized as rehearsed. "Baby, I love you. You know that. Sasha was... She didn't mean anything. She was a mistake. A stupid, stupid mistake. And I am begging you, open the door and let me explain." Avery closed her eyes. There was a version of her, the version from 6 months ago, maybe even 3, who would have opened the door, who would have cried and let him pull her into his chest and let him tell her whatever he needed to tell her to make the panic stop. That version of her was a ghost now. That version of her had died in the bathroom 2 hours ago when she'd seen a text that said she still has no idea. Does she? "Goodbye, Marcus." "Avery, Avery, don't you dare." She walked away from the door. Tapam. She ended up on the fire escape because the apartment felt like it was holding its breath and she couldn't be inside of it for another second. The city was loud in that specific New York way. Sirens 3 blocks over, somebody's radio on a rooftop, the deep bass thud of a truck rolling down 2nd Avenue. It was April. It was cold in a way that April shouldn't be. She had a blanket around her shoulders and her phone in her lap and a glass of cheap white wine that she didn't remember pouring. She scrolled. She knew she shouldn't. She knew every single person who had ever had their heart broken had been told, on good authority, do not text him. But there was a pressure in her chest like something was trying to claw its way out. And if she didn't put it somewhere, it was going to come out of her mouth and the neighbors would call the cops. She opened her messages. Marcus was at the top. Of course he was. Little green dot next to his name, online, probably reading the messages she'd sent him earlier and workshopping which one to respond to first. Avery's thumb hovered. She thought about typing something dignified. I hope you find what you're looking for. I hope Sasha makes you happy. I hope one day you understand what you lost. And then she thought, no. No, she did not hope those things. She hoped he got food poisoning from a gas station sushi roll. She hoped Sasha turned out to be a Scorpio. She hoped every single one of his fantasy football picks got injured in week 1. She hoped he tried to parallel park his stupid leased BMW and scrape the whole side on a fire hydrant and had to explain it to the dealership. Her thumb started moving. You are a coward. You are a small, sad, lying little coward, and the worst part isn't even that you cheated, it's that you made me feel crazy for an entire year while you did it. You gaslit me about the hotel charge. You told me I was being weird when I asked why you were always on your phone. You let me meet your mother. You let me help you pick out her Christmas present. And the whole time you were texting some woman named Sasha and telling her I didn't understand you. Well, Marcus, I understand you now. I understand you perfectly. You are exactly the kind of man my mother warned me about, and I was too stupid and too in love and too tired to listen. I hope she was worth it. I hope every single thing you get from this point forward is exactly what you deserve. Do not call me. Do not come here again. I changed the locks. I am keeping the good pan. She read it back. She added, and your mother never liked me anyway. I don't know why you told me she did. She called me Ashley for 8 months. She read it back again. She was crying. She hadn't realized she was crying. A fat tear rolled off her chin and landed on the screen right next to the send button, and she watched it sit there, trembling, reflecting the hallway light. She pressed send. The whoosh sound was very satisfying. She exhaled. She felt, not better exactly, but something. A little loosening. A little space in her ribs where there hadn't been space. She took a sip of her wine. It tasted like vinegar and bad decisions, and she loved it. And then she looked at her screen, and the little bubble under her message said, delivered. And the name at the top of the conversation said, in neat gray letters, ICE, do not delete. Avery's stomach dropped through the fire escape, through the alley, through the sidewalk, through the subway tunnels below, and landed somewhere around the center of the earth. No, she said, out loud, to nobody. No, 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 no. She stared at the screen. ICE, in case of emergency. The contact she had saved 7 months ago after the car accident, after she'd been driving home from her sister's bridal shower in a rental sedan on the Long Island Expressway at 10 o'clock at night, and some idiot in a pickup had merged into her lane without looking and spun her out into the median. She remembered the sound, the scream of metal, the airbag going off like a punch, the smell of burnt plastic. She remembered sitting in the wreckage, shaking, her ears ringing, completely unable to remember the phone number of a single person she loved. Not her sister, not her mother, nobody. And then a man had appeared at her window. He had not been driving the pickup. The pickup had gone off the road. He had pulled over. He had calmly and without hurrying opened her door and asked if she could move her legs. He had a voice like somebody reading a book to a child. He had gray at his temples and a wool coat that looked expensive even in the dark. He had called an ambulance. He had sat on the guardrail next to her until it came. Before it came, he had given her his number. If you need anything, he had said, in the next week or the next year, you call this number, you don't explain, you just say your name, someone will pick up. She had stared at him. Why? He had looked at her for a long moment. His eyes were very dark and very still, and she had the strangest feeling, sitting there with glass in her hair and blood in her mouth, that she was being evaluated, weighed, catalogued. Because, he said finally, bad things happen to people on highways at night, and you were the only person who stopped to see if the man in the pickup was alive. She had stopped. She had. Before she'd even registered her own injuries, she had stumbled out and gone to check on him, because that was who she was. That was who her mother had raised her to be. You stop and you check on people. The man in the pickup had been alive, drunk and alive. She had saved the stranger's number and written ICE, do not delete, because his voice had made her feel safe, and she had thought, if I'm ever in trouble, real trouble, I will call this man. And she had never called. Until tonight. Until she had accidentally sent him a message that started, "You are a coward," and ended, "I am keeping the good pan." "Oh my God," Avery whispered. "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God." She scrolled back up to the top of the thread. Maybe it wasn't delivered. Maybe she'd imagined it. Maybe delivered. And then, as she watched, 3 little dots appeared under her message, typing. She stopped breathing. The dots pulsed for a long time. 3 seconds. 5. 10. She counted them because her brain had latched onto the counting as a way to keep from screaming, and then the dots disappeared. No response. Just silence. She let out a breath. Okay. Okay. He was probably... She didn't even know what he was. A businessman. A nice older gentleman who pulled over on highways. He had probably looked at the message, realized it was a wrong number, and ignored it. That was fine. That was embarrassing, but that was fine. She would send a follow-up. She would apologize. She would explain. She would... Her phone buzzed in her hand. She looked down. ICE, do not delete. Avery. Just her name. No period. No context. Just her name. Her mouth had gone completely dry. She typed, fingers shaking. I am so sorry. That message was not for you. I was trying to text my ex-boyfriend. I am so embarrassed. Please ignore it. I am so sorry. She sent it. The reply came within 3 seconds. ICE, do not delete. Are you alone in the apartment? Avery blinked at her screen. That was a strange question. That was not the question a normal person asked after receiving a misdirected rant. A normal person said, ha ha ha, no worries or wrong number or nothing at all. She typed, yes, why? ICE, do not delete. Stay inside, lock the door. I'll be there in 6 minutes. What? Avery said out loud. What? She typed, I'm sorry, what? You don't have to come here. It was a mistake. I am really sorry. I'll explain everything. I see. Do not delete. Avery, listen to me. Go inside. Lock the door. Do not answer it for anyone who is not me. I will identify myself when I arrive. Do you understand? It wasn't a question. There was no question mark. She read it 3 times. Her hand was shaking so hard she almost dropped the phone. What? She whispered, is happening. She didn't know what she was responding to. The voice in the messages, the memory of him on the guardrail, the look in his eyes that night, the evaluating look, like she'd been being measured against a list she couldn't see. Some instinct in her spine, the same instinct that tells you to cross the street when you see a certain kind of group on the corner, the instinct that tells you the basement is wrong, the instinct humans have because they used to be prey, that instinct was on fire. She climbed in through the window. She locked it. She went to the front door and checked the bolt, then checked it again. Then checked it a 3rd time because her hands didn't believe her eyes. She stood in the middle of her living room in her sweatpants and a ratty sorority t-shirt from college, holding her phone, and tried very hard to remember how to be a person. Ciao. 4 minutes later, she heard them. She didn't know what she was hearing at first. It was just volume. A change in the texture of the street noise outside. Engines. Multiple engines. Big ones. The kind that didn't belong on this block. She went to the window. Her apartment was on the 4th floor of a brownstone in Alphabet City, the kind of block where the loudest vehicle was usually a Fresh Direct truck or some Tech Bros Rivian. It was not a block where convoys happened. A convoy was happening. 3 black SUVs were pulling up in a neat line at the curb. Tinted windows. New. Matching. The kind of SUVs that did not belong to any private individual who had a normal relationship with the tax code. The kind that belonged to diplomats or federal agents, or... The doors opened in unison. Men got out. They were big. They were in dark suits. They were not, she noted, in the kind of rumpled, off-the-rack suits that federal agents wore. These suits had been cut for the men wearing them. Shoulders, silhouettes. One of them tilted his head the way you tilt your head when you're listening to an earpiece. 2 men moved toward her building entrance. One took the corner of the block. 2 more stayed by the cars, scanning the street. From the middle SUV, a back door opened. A man got out. Even from 4 stories up, in the amber light of the street lamp, she knew him. The coat? Different coat, darker, longer, but the same expensive quiet. The gray at the temples. The way he moved, which was not a hurry, had never been a hurry. He moved like someone who had never in his entire adult life needed to run for anything. He looked up, directly at her window. Their eyes locked through 4 stories of brick and glass and distance, and Avery's whole body went cold. Her phone buzzed. Icy. Do not delete. Come down. She didn't move. She couldn't. Her legs had stopped being legs. They were 2 columns of warm concrete attached to her hips, and they did not answer to her brain. The phone buzzed again. Ice. Do not delete. You are not in trouble. You're in danger. Those are different things. Come down or I come up. Your choice. She made a small sound in the back of her throat. It was not a word. It was the kind of sound a small animal makes when it realizes the thing on the other side of the hedge is bigger than it is. She typed, with fingers she couldn't feel. Who are you? The response came immediately. Ice. Do not delete. Downstairs. 2 minutes. I will explain everything. I promise you will be safe. But you have to move, Avery. Now. Safe. That was the word that got her moving. Because there was something in her that understood, with a clarity that bypassed her conscious mind completely, that the only reason anyone ever said you will be safe was because there was a reason, a real and specific reason you might not be. She shoved her feet into sneakers. She grabbed a hoodie off the kitchen chair. She grabbed her keys. She almost grabbed her wallet and then didn't because she didn't know what she was going to, and she didn't want to be the kind of woman who went to her own kidnapping with her driver's license in her pocket. She almost laughed again. That same hysterical hiccup. Kidnapping. She was being absurd. She was being ridiculous. This was a man who had helped her on a highway. This was a nice older businessman who had probably just seen the news or something, who was probably overreacting, who was probably going to laugh at her when she got downstairs and say, Avery, my dear, you texted the wrong person. Let's get you a cup of coffee. She walked out of her apartment. In the hallway, she passed the bags containing Marcus's PlayStation and his gym clothes and his copy of The Alchemist, which he had never read. She did not look at them. She went downstairs. The lobby of her building was the kind of lobby that had once been grand and was now just old. Checkered floor, a radiator that worked too well, a bulletin board with a flyer for a yoga class that had happened in 2019. The front door was heavy glass with an iron grate, and through it she could see the 3 black SUVs and the men standing around them, and the man in the middle. He was waiting. He saw her through the glass and he did not smile. She pushed the door open. The cold hit her first. The second thing that hit her was the silence. Her block, at 9:30 on a Tuesday, should have had people on it. Walking dogs, coming back from dinner, smoking on stoops. Instead, it was empty. Every single person who had been on this block had, somehow, in the last 4 minutes, decided to be somewhere else. That was not a coincidence. The man took 1 step toward her. Avery Cole, he said. Up close, in the lamplight, he was... She didn't have the word for it. Not handsome, exactly. He was too cold for handsome. He was composed. He was a man who had been assembled, piece by piece, over 40-something years, and every piece fit. The coat, the watch, the faint line of a scar above his left eyebrow. The eyes, which she now saw in full light, were not dark. They were a very pale, very unsettling gray. "Who are you?" she said. "My name is Luca Moretti." She waited. "That name," he said, "does not mean anything to you. I would like to keep it that way for another 40 minutes or so. I want to go back upstairs." "I understand." "I want to go back upstairs now." "Avery." His voice was so quiet she had to lean toward it. I need you to listen to me very carefully. Can you do that? She nodded because she couldn't do anything else. The message you sent tonight, he said, was received on a phone that is not mine alone. It is monitored. It belongs to, let's call it a professional infrastructure. The number you saved 7 months ago is a number that is meant to be used by one person, one time, for one reason. You were that person. This was supposed to be that time. It was not tonight for that reason. Wait, let me finish. The people who monitor that line saw a message come through that wasn't on any script they recognized. They saw it come from a number belonging to a woman who has no traceable connection to me except an insurance claim from a traffic accident 7 months ago. 12 minutes ago, in a room you will hopefully never see, 3 men started asking who you are. One of them, and here, for the first time, something flickered across his face. Not fear, but something adjacent to it, something like cold calculation, is a man I cannot afford to have asking that question. Avery's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Do you understand what I am telling you? No, she whispered. Good. He almost smiled. It did not reach his eyes. That's the correct answer. Anyone who said yes right now would be lying. He took another step toward her, not threatening, precise. I am not a good man, Luca Moretti said. I'm not going to lie to you about that, because we are past the part of the evening where a lie would help either of us. But I'm a man who owes you a debt. You stopped on that highway. You checked on a man who, by the way, would have killed you if he'd been sober. That was decent of you. I do not forget decent things. Her voice cracked. I don't know what's happening. What is happening, he said, is that at this moment, there are men in a building in Queens trying to figure out whether you are a federal asset, a rival operative, or a mistake. If they decide you are either of the first two, they will send people to this apartment in approximately 40 minutes. If they decide you are the third, they will still send people because mistakes are tidied up. Do you follow? She was going to throw up. I am offering you, he said, a fourth option. What? She managed. He looked at her for a long moment. His eyes moved over her face like he was memorizing something. Get in the car with me, Luca Moretti said, and I will tell them you are mine. Ma. Behind her, somewhere in the building, a door slammed. A neighbor. A normal person. Going upstairs to a normal apartment to watch a normal show on a normal Tuesday. Avery could hear the elevator ding. She was standing on a sidewalk with a man who owned SUVs the way other people owned umbrellas, and he was telling her with absolute calm that she had less than an hour before strangers came to her apartment to decide whether she lived. Her phone buzzed in her hand. She looked down. It was Marcus. Baby, please. Call me. I am downstairs. I brought flowers. For one single, insane second, Avery wanted to laugh so hard she'd break something. She wanted to sit down on the sidewalk and laugh until she cried. Marcus was downstairs. Marcus was downstairs with flowers. Marcus had no idea that 3 black SUVs were sitting on her block. Marcus had no idea that she was standing in the cold with a man whose name was apparently so dangerous he didn't want to tell her what it meant for another 40 minutes. Marcus was down the block with a bouquet of grocery store carnations. She looked up, and down the block, at the corner, she saw him. Marcus, standing under the streetlight, staring at the convoy. His mouth was open. One of Luca's men, a massive bald man with a neck like a fire hydrant, had turned to follow her gaze. He looked at Marcus. Then he looked at Luca. It was the smallest possible look, an eyebrow twitch, a question. Luca didn't turn his head. He kept his eyes on Avery. Friend of yours? He said. No, Avery said. It came out of her before she thought about it. Flat, final. No, she said again. Not anymore. Something in Luca's face changed. It was not a smile. It was the ghost of one. A micro-expression that came and went before she could be sure she'd seen it. Last chance, Avery Cole. He held out a hand. Not grabbing, offered. Upstairs, and you take your chances. Or in the car with me and you live. Her phone was still buzzing. Marcus again. Marcus calling her. She looked at Luca Moretti's hand. She thought about the bathroom floor 2 hours ago. She thought about Sasha and the hotel sheets and the second phone in the glove box. She thought about the way she had, for 2 years, made herself smaller so Marcus could feel bigger, and how tonight, for the first time in her adult life, she had decided she was done with small. She thought, I just changed the locks on one door tonight. She reached out. She put her hand in his. His fingers closed around hers. Warm. Steady. A grip that told her, with 0 words, that he had held on to other things in his life, and he did not let go until he meant to. Good girl, Luca Moretti said. Quiet. Not condescending. Almost relieved. He turned, still holding her hand, and walked her toward the middle SUV. The bald man opened the back door. Down the block, Marcus shouted her name. She didn't turn around. She got in the car. Luca got in after her. The door closed. The convoy pulled away from the curb, 3 sets of taillights sliding into the East Village traffic like they'd never been there. And the last thing Avery Cole saw of her old life was Marcus standing on the corner of Avenue B with a bouquet of supermarket flowers in his hand and a look on his face like he had just watched something he didn't understand take his girlfriend away into the dark. Inside the SUV, it was warm. It smelled like leather and some faint cologne she couldn't name. Luca had not let go of her hand. She realized this a full minute after they'd pulled away, and she looked down at their fingers, laced together on the seat between them, like she was seeing someone else's hand. Breathe, Luca said. She breathed. Again. She breathed. I'm going to ask you some questions now, he said, and I need you to answer them truthfully. Can you do that? Yes, she whispered. Good. First question. He turned his head to look at her. Gray eyes, very still, very close. Who have you told in the last 7 months about the accident on the expressway? About me? About the number? She thought. No one, she said. I didn't. It felt private. I don't know why. I told my sister I was in a crash. I didn't tell her about you. He nodded once. Good, he said. That's good. The SUV merged onto the FDR. The river slid by on their right, black and restless, reflecting the bridges in broken gold. Second question, Luca said. Your ex, on the sidewalk, with the flowers, is he the kind of man who will let this go? Avery thought about Marcus, about the way he'd rattled her door handle an hour ago, about the way, 3 months into their relationship, he'd thrown her phone at a wall because she'd taken too long to text him back from brunch, about the second phone in the glove box, about Sasha, about Daddy. No, she said, he is not. Luca was quiet for a long moment. The city slid past. Okay, he said, finally, and he squeezed her hand just once before letting it go. Then he's a problem for later. He looked out the window. Avery looked at the side of his face, the line of his jaw, the scar above the eyebrow, the way the streetlights slid over him in yellow bars, and tried to understand what had just happened to her life. A single message, one angry thumb on a glowing screen. That was all it had taken. That was all anything ever took, apparently. She had meant to burn her life down tonight. She had not realized, when she struck the match, that she was standing in a field of gasoline she'd never known was there. Somewhere in a building in Queens, 3 men were asking who she was. Somewhere on a sidewalk in Alphabet City, her ex-boyfriend was still holding flowers. And in the back of a black SUV heading north on the FDR, Avery Cole sat next to the most dangerous man in the city and tried, very hard, to remember what her own name sounded like when she said it out loud. Moretti, she said, quiet. He turned. Yes. That name. She swallowed. In 40 minutes, you said you'd tell me what it means. He looked at her for a long time. Yes, he said. I did. He did not look away. The SUV hummed. The city flowed past in ribbons of light. Ask me in 40 minutes, Luca Moretti said, and I will tell you. The convoy crossed onto the bridge, and the water went on underneath them, dark and wide, and Avery Cole rode into a night that did not belong to her anymore, holding her phone in her lap with one last buzzing message from a man named Marcus, who she was never, in her entire life, going to see again. The bridge gave way to Queens, and Queens gave way to a part of the city Avery had never had a reason to know. Warehouses. Loading docks. A stretch of road where the streetlights were spaced too far apart, So the SUV kept passing through long stretches of dark and then brief bright islands of yellow, and Luca's face kept disappearing and reappearing on the seat next to her. He had not said another word since the bridge. Avery held her phone in her lap with both hands, the way a person holds something hot. Marcus's last message was still on the screen. Baby. Who were those men? Call me. Right now. She hadn't opened it. She was afraid to open it because if she opened it, the little read receipt would travel back through the air to his phone, and he would know she was alive and reading, and something in her had decided in the last 18 minutes that she did not want Marcus to know anything about her ever again. The phone buzzed again. She flinched. Luca's eyes moved. He didn't turn his head, but his eyes moved, a quick slide sideways to take in the screen in her lap. It's him, she said, before he asked. He's not going to stop. No, Luca said. Men like that rarely do. She almost laughed. What do you know about men like that? He looked at her properly then. In the passing light, his face went from shadow to gold to shadow again. A great deal, Avery. Something in the way he said her name made her ribs feel small. The SUV took a left, then a right. Then it pulled into an underground garage that was so clean and well lit, Avery's first confused thought was that they had ended up at a hotel. The door rolled down behind them with a soft mechanical sigh. She heard it lock. Where are we? She said. Somewhere quiet, Luca said. For a conversation I'd rather not have in the car. That's not an answer. No, he agreed. It isn't. The bald man opened her door. He did not look at her face. He looked very briefly at her hands, and then at her shoes, and then at the seams where her hoodie met her sweatpants, and she understood, with a little cold prickle up her spine, that he was checking her for wires, for weapons, for something. She stepped out onto polished concrete. Her sneakers squeaked. Luca was already walking, not fast. He walked the way he had stood on her sidewalk, like the world had been built around his pace and was politely waiting for him to catch up. She followed because there was nothing else to do. The elevator was mirrored on all four sides, and Avery caught sight of herself as the doors slid shut. She looked terrible. Her eyes were red. Her hair was in the kind of bun that happens when you give up. She was in sweatpants with a stain on the thigh that might have been pasta sauce from a Sunday she couldn't remember. Next to Luca's dark coat and clean cuffs, she looked like a woman who had been pulled out of her own kitchen in the middle of a breakdown, which, to be fair, she had. She saw him notice her looking. You don't need to be embarrassed, he said. Quiet. You're not here to be looked at. Oh, Avery said. Great. What am I here for then? He turned his head. To stay alive. The elevator opened. It was an apartment. Not a safe house, not an office. An apartment, the kind you saw in magazines you couldn't afford. Wood floors, tall windows, the river glittering beyond. The lights were low and warm. There was a glass of water already sitting on the marble island of the kitchen, as if someone had known what minute they'd arrive. A woman was standing at the far end of the room, mid-50s, sharp suit, a tablet in her hand. She did not smile when they came in. She looked at Avery for 3 long seconds, and Avery had the exact feeling she'd had on that guardrail 7 months ago. I am being evaluated. Tell me, the woman said. Not to Avery, to Luca. Her name is Avery Cole, 28. Graphic designer, freelance, mostly editorial. Grew up in New Jersey, sister in Hoboken, mother in Tampa. Father out of the picture since she was 11. No federal record, no priors. She was in the expressway crash last September. She is the one who stopped. The woman's eyes did not move from Avery's face. And the message. Meant for her ex, sent to me. The ex is, he paused, considering, a non-factor. Loud, but a non-factor. Dario's people pulled it in 11 minutes, the woman said. He's already asking. I know. He's already asking a lot. I know, Elena. The woman, Elena, finally looked at Luca, just a flick of her eyes. But the flick said a great deal. It said, do you know what you're doing? It said, this is going to cost us. It said, I have watched you make one decision in 20 years that I thought was sentimental, and this is the second. What are you telling him? Elena said. That she's mine, Luca said. Elena breathed out once, slow, through her nose. Luca. Elena. He will not believe you. He will if she's convincing. Avery, who had been holding still the way a deer holds still in the middle of a road, finally made a small sound. I'm sorry. Excuse me. I'm sorry. Hi. What does that mean? They both looked at her. It was Elena who spoke. Her voice was not unkind, but it was not warm either. It was the voice of a woman who had spent 30 years delivering information that other people did not want to hear. Miss Cole, she said, sit down. Avery sat. There was a stool at the island, her legs folded under her like they were grateful for the excuse. Elena set the tablet on the marble, pushed the glass of water toward her. Drink. Avery drank. Her hand shook and water spilled down her chin. She didn't bother wiping it. You are in a situation, Elena said, that has nothing to do with you. I want you to hear that first because everything I am about to tell you will feel personal, and it is not. You are a logistical problem. A message arrived on a line it should not have arrived on. And now there are people who have to be convinced that the message was not what it looked like. Do you follow? Not really, Avery whispered. Elena's mouth moved. It was almost a smile. Good. Most people who say they follow at this stage are lying. Here is what you need to understand. Mr. Moretti is a businessman. His business operates in, call it a difficult market. In this market, trust is the only currency that holds value. Every single person in Mr. Moretti's organization is watched at all times by every other person in Mr. Moretti's organization. This is not paranoia. This is structure. Are you following? Avery nodded. Tonight, a message arrived on Mr. Moretti's private line. A line that is understood by everyone in his organization to be reserved for a very specific type of contact. The content of the message was personal, emotional, unusual. Within 11 minutes, a man named Dario Falcone, who is second in the organization and who has wanted to be first for a long time, had the message in front of him. Avery's stomach turned over. Dario, Elena continued, now has two choices. One, he believes the message is what it is, a wrong number from a heartbroken woman. This is the correct answer. It is also the boring answer. Dario has never, in 20 years, chosen a boring answer when a dangerous one was available. Two, he believes the message is a code, a signal, an indication that Mr. Moretti is running an operation that Mr. Moretti has not told the rest of the organization about. This is the wrong answer, but it is the answer Dario will want to believe, because that answer gives him an opportunity. An opportunity to do what? Avery said. Elena looked at Luca. Luca, who had been standing at the window with his back to the room, did not turn. To kill me, he said, evenly, and take over. Avery put both hands flat on the marble. It was cold. She used it to remind herself that her body existed. Okay, she said. Okay. Okay. So you're telling me that I texted a Mafia guy, and now his second-in-command wants to kill him because he thinks I'm, what, a spy? An agent? Somebody's mistress? All three are on the list, Elena said, and I'm not any of those things. No, you are not. Then why don't you just tell him I'm not? Because we can't prove it, Elena said. And in Mr. Moretti's line of work, proof is the only thing that travels. We cannot prove you are not a mistress, but we can give him a mistress to believe in. Avery's mouth went dry all over again. You want me to pretend to be his girlfriend? Yes. For how long? For as long as it takes. For as long as what takes. Elena looked at Luca again. Luca finally turned. The city behind him made a kind of backlight, and his face went very still and very hard to read. Until I find out who inside my organization has been feeding information to Dario, he said. Because someone has. Someone has been telling him which of my lines is which. Someone told him, tonight, that the message he was looking at came from a line he should not have even known existed. I do not have that person yet. When I have them, the rest collapses. And until then, Avery said, I'm what? I live here? You live with me, Luca said. You come to the estate upstate. You are seen. You wear what I tell you to wear. You eat where I tell you to eat. And when Dario comes sniffing, and he will come sniffing, Avery, he will come within 48 hours. You smile at him and you hold my arm and you make him believe that the message he saw was exactly what it looked like. A woman who is very stupidly in love with a man who does not take her calls. Oh, Avery said. Oh, great, perfect, cool. She laughed. It wasn't a real laugh. And if I say no? You won't, Elena said. I might. You won't, Elena repeated. She did not raise her voice. Because if you say no, you go back to your apartment on 7th Street, and in 90 minutes, 2 men in a very forgettable sedan park on your block. They will not hurt you. Not that night. They will follow you for 3 days. They will take photographs. They will identify your sister in Hoboken and your mother in Tampa and the studio where you have your Tuesday Pilates class. And on the 4th day, when Dario has decided what kind of problem you are, he will tell those 2 men what to do with you. Mr. Moretti will try to stop it. He will, in fact, probably stop it. But the cost of that will be an open war inside an organization that is currently only in a cold one, and the casualties of that war will include, at minimum, the 2 men who are following you, your sister, and possibly your mother. Am I being clear? Avery could not breathe. Elena, Luca said, soft, warning. She asked, Elena said, without looking at him. I am telling her. She needs to know what the alternative is. She is an adult. Avery found her voice. It was very small. You're threatening my family. No, Elena said. I am describing a situation that exists whether or not I describe it. I did not create this situation. You did, when you sent that message. Mr. Moretti did, when he gave you the number. We are past blame. We are into solutions. Avery looked at Luca. He was watching her. Gray eyes, steady, unreadable, and something behind them that was not pity exactly, but was close to it. Something like regret. Something like the memory of standing on a highway 7 months ago and making a decision he had not fully thought through. Is she right? Avery whispered. Yes, Luca said. All of it. Yes. Even the part about my mother. Yes. She put her face in her hands. It was not crying at first. It was just pressure. A heat behind her eyes. A tightness in her throat. And then it broke suddenly, and she was crying the way she had not cried since she was 12, the ugly kind, the heaving kind, her shoulders shaking over the marble and her breath coming in wet, ragged chunks. She cried for her apartment, for her locked door, for the PlayStation in the hallway, for the bouquet of grocery store flowers that Marcus was probably still holding somewhere. She cried for her mother in Tampa, who had a garden full of tomatoes and called her every Sunday. She cried for the version of her life that had ended at 9:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, and she cried because she had not even had time to say goodbye to it. Luca did not touch her. Elena did not touch her either, but Elena did, after a long moment, push a box of tissues across the marble toward her. It is a lot, Elena said. I know. You don't know, Avery said without lifting her head. You don't know. I know more than you think. Something in Elena's voice made Avery look up. The older woman's face had not changed. Still sharp, still cool, but her eyes, for a fraction of a second, had gone somewhere a long way away. Then she came back. Drink your water, Elena said. Blow your nose. We have about 2 hours before we need to be in the car. 2 hours, Avery repeated. To the estate, upstate. You will meet the household tonight. Tomorrow morning, Dario will call because Dario will already have heard from one of them. The house staff talk. That is how we want them to talk. You're staging this. Yes. For your own people. Yes. Avery laughed. It came out a little wild. This is insane, she said. This is actually insane. You people live like this. We do, Luca said. He had moved. He was on the stool next to her now, and she had not seen him cross the room. He had a way of being suddenly closer that she was going to have to get used to. Look at me, he said, low. Avery, look at me. She looked. I did not plan this, he said. I did not engineer any of this. When I gave you that number, I gave it to you because I thought, one day, you might be in a situation where you needed a person. I did not think it would be this situation. I did not think it would be tonight. Then why did you give it to me? She whispered. He was quiet for a moment. Because people who stop on highways are rare, he said, and I wanted to know where one lived in case I ever needed one. She didn't know what to do with that. He looked down at his hands briefly. They were nice hands, clean, square, a gold signet ring on the smallest finger of his left, a scar across the back of his right thumb, old, faded. "There is something else you should know," he said. "Oh, good. The part where you pretend to be with me." His eyes came back up. "That will not be cosmetic. Dario will watch. Dario will have people watch. In the house, in the cars, on the grounds. You will not be touched against your will. That is not what I mean. But you will be expected to behave as if you have been with me for some time. You will share a floor of the house. You will be at my side at dinners. You will answer questions from people who will be trying to catch you in a lie. Your story has to be stronger than their suspicion. Do you understand?" "I understand the words," Avery said. "That is a start. I don't know how to be with a man like you." He almost smiled. "Avery," Luca said very quietly, "no one does. Until they do." She stared at him. Something in her chest moved sideways. She did not have a name for it. She was not going to look for a name for it. She was 28 years old, and she had 2 hours ago found out her boyfriend was cheating, and she was not the kind of woman who caught a feeling inside an hour in a kitchen with a man who had just informed her that his organization might murder her family. She was not. "Can I use your bathroom?" she said. He blinked. "What? Your bathroom? I need to stop crying, and I need to blow my nose, and I would like to do that somewhere that is not in front of 2 strangers. Is that all right?" "Of course," he said. Elena pointed. "Down the hall. Second door." Avery slid off the stool on legs that had become unreliable and walked down the hall and closed the bathroom door behind her and locked it, and then stood with her forehead against the cool of the mirror and breathed. In, out, in, out. Her reflection was a disaster. Her eyes were 2 pink puffs. There was a tiny piece of tissue stuck to her cheek. She peeled it off. Her phone buzzed. She looked down. It was not Marcus this time. It was her sister. "Hey, weirdo, Mom says you haven't called her in 2 weeks. I told her you're probably in a Marcus spiral. Am I right?" Avery stared at the message. She thought about her sister Kat, who had red hair and a loud laugh, and had been the maid of honor at nobody's wedding yet, and was currently dating a guy named Theo, who wore a lot of Patagonia. She thought about Kat in her apartment in Hoboken, in her pajamas, probably eating ice cream out of the container, not knowing that a man named Dario Falcone had, 11 minutes ago, in a building in Queens, looked at the name Avery Cole on a piece of paper and thought interesting. She thought about what would happen to Kat if she said no. She put her phone face down on the sink. She looked at herself in the mirror, at her blotchy face, at her ruined mascara, at the stain on her sweatpants. "Okay," she said to the woman in the mirror. "Okay. Okay. She washed her face. She splashed cold water until her skin stung. She dried off with a towel that was thicker and softer than any towel she had ever owned, and that somehow made everything worse, because what kind of man had towels like this, and what kind of life was she about to walk into? She went back out. Luca was standing. Elena was gone. A duffel bag was on the counter. "Clothes," he said, "your size. I had someone pull them from a boutique uptown. You'll have more at the house." "How do you know my size?" "The insurance paperwork 7 months ago included the hospital intake form." "Oh," Avery said. "Oh, that's really something. I apologize." "Do you?" He considered. "No," he said. "Not really, but I am willing to pretend to, if that would help." She laughed, a real one this time. Short, surprised, a little broken. "You are a strange man. I have been told. I don't have a toothbrush. There is one at the house. I don't have—" She stopped. "I don't have a lot of things, actually. I don't have my laptop. I don't have my work. I don't have my mother's emergency contact card. I don't have the cardigan my grandmother knitted me when I was 17 that I sleep in every night because it still sort of smells like her, even though she died 4 years ago. I don't have any of it. It's all in that apartment." His face did something. It was small, but it was there. "Write me a list," he said. "In the car. Everything you want from the apartment. I will have it at the estate by morning." "You can do that." "Yes." "Without going in yourself." "I have people." "Of course you do," Avery said. Of course you have people." She picked up the duffel bag. It was heavier than she expected. Okay, she said. Let's go to your estate, Luca Moretti. He looked at her for a long second. Avery Cole, he said. Yes. This will not be as bad as you are imagining. Will it be worse? He thought about that. Possibly, he said. Cool, she said. Great, love that for me. And he laughed. It was a small laugh, a sound she got the sense he did not make very often, and it surprised him almost as much as it surprised her. The SUV was different this time, bigger. Armored, she realized when she climbed in, and the door swung with the weight of a bank vault. The driver was a young guy with a buzz cut and eyes that never stopped moving. In the passenger seat sat the bald man from earlier, whose name, Luca told her as the convoy pulled out of the garage, was Tommaso, and who had been with him for 19 years, and whom Avery could trust. Trust, Avery said. Yes. To do what? To put himself between you and a bullet, if it came to that. Oh, she said faintly. Well, that's a relationship. Tommaso did not turn around, but she saw in the rear view the corner of his mouth move. Just a flicker. And she thought, okay, he's a person. He's a person inside that neck, somewhere. They drove. New York turned into Westchester, turned into something darker, emptier, with more trees. Her phone died at some point and she did not ask to charge it. She did not want to see any more messages from Marcus. She did not want to see any more messages from Kat. She wanted to sit in the dark back of this SUV and feel the hum of the tires under her and pretend for 45 minutes that she was on a very expensive airport ride. Luca, next to her, was on his phone. Not texting, reading. Every so often, his thumb would move and he would frown, and the frown would go away, and he would keep reading. Once he said, without looking up, "Are you cold?" "No." "There's a blanket in the console." "I'm not cold." "All right." A mile later, he reached across her without a word, opened the console, pulled out a folded cashmere throw, and laid it across her lap. He did not look at her while he did it. He did not ask. He just did it, and then he went back to his phone, and Avery sat there under the weight of a blanket that probably cost more than her rent, and tried to remember if anyone, ever, had taken care of her that quietly. Marcus had not. Marcus had been loud about taking care of her. Marcus had posted about it. Marcus had announced at parties that he was a provider, a word that had made her cringe even when she was still in love with him. This was different. This was a man who did not need her to see. She pulled the blanket up higher. "Thank you," she said. A long silence. The tires hummed. Outside the window, trees flickered past in the headlights, and there was a thin white moon over the hills. "Luca," she said. "Yes." "Earlier, in the car, you said I could ask you in 40 minutes what your name means." He lowered his phone. He set it screen down on his thigh. "Yes," he said. "I did. It's been a lot more than 40 minutes. It has." "So." He was quiet for a moment. "My family," he said, "came to this country in 1952, from a town in Calabria that no longer exists under that name. My grandfather worked in a fish market in Red Hook. My father worked in construction. My father was a hard man who believed in doing things correctly, and he built, over 40 years, a network of people who owed him favors and a network of people who owed him money. When he died, the network did not die with him. I inherited it. That was 22 years ago. I was 26. 26, Avery repeated. Yes. What kind of network? He looked at her. The passing light caught his eyes silver. The kind, he said, that you do not have an honest name for. We have legitimate businesses. Import, real estate. Several restaurants in Midtown that you have probably walked past without knowing. And we have businesses that are not legitimate. I am not going to itemize them for you. It would not help you to know. Okay. The organization has a name. It is an old name. I'm not going to say it in this car because I do not say it in cars. But it is a name that, if you said it to most of the men in a certain kind of bar in Bensonhurst, would cause them to stop talking. Do you understand? Yes, she said. Her voice was smaller than she wanted it. Dario Falcone, Luca continued, is my father's godson. He grew up in my house. He called my mother Aunt when he was 8 years old. He is also, at this moment, the most dangerous man in my life. I have known him for 40 years, and I cannot prove what he is doing, and that is why you are here. Because you need a distraction. Because I need a mirror. Something for him to look at that is not the thing I am actually doing. You are the mirror, Avery. While he is watching the mirror, I'm going to find the leak, and I'm going to close it, and then you will be free to go. Free to go? Yes. To what? He looked at her, a long look, and for the first time she thought she saw, under the composure, something that was not composed, something tired, something that had not slept well in a long time. To whatever life you want, he said. I will make sure it is a better one than the one you left tonight. You don't owe me that. I do. Why? Because, he said very simply, you are a decent person and I am about to use you, and I would like, at the end of this, for you to still be a decent person. That is not a thing I can guarantee, but I can try. She didn't know what to say to that. She looked out the window. They had turned off the highway. They were on a smaller road now, 2 lanes, no streetlights, just the hills rolling black on either side and the occasional glimmer of a farmhouse in the distance. The moon had climbed higher. There was fog in the low places between the hills, and the headlights cut through it like the beams were afraid of what was underneath. It's pretty up here, Avery said. It is. Is it always like this? In the spring, yes. In the winter, it is not pretty. It is brutal. The wind comes off the hills, and the house is very old, and no amount of money makes old houses warm. She smiled, a little, despite herself. You're complaining about your mansion. I am. Poor you. Yes. They fell quiet again. The convoy moved. 3 sets of red taillights ahead, 1 behind. The road bent. Luca's phone buzzed on his thigh. He picked it up, looked. His face did not change, but Avery had been watching him for 2 hours now, and she was already starting to read the small things. The tightening at the edge of the jaw, the slight pull at the corner of the mouth. What is it? She said. Nothing. Luca. He looked at her. The what is it in her voice had sounded, even to her, more demanding than she had meant it to. One of my people at the house, he said, just confirmed that Dario called half an hour ago. He asked to be told when we arrive. He wants to come to dinner tomorrow. Okay? He is bringing 3 of his own men. Okay? That is not standard. How not standard? Very, Luca said. He is bringing 3 of his own men and his cousin Raphael, who is a lawyer of a kind I do not like. That is a signal. A signal of what? Luca did not answer right away. He is testing, he finally said. He wants to see how the house responds to pressure. Which of my people go quiet when his people walk in? Which of them move toward him? Which of them move toward me? It is a very old game. Dario is good at it. And tomorrow at dinner you have to convince him you love me. She laughed, short and startled. Oh, she said. Is that all? That is all. Luca. Yes. I am a graphic designer. I can't even pretend to like a coworker's baby pictures. I once told my ex's mother her lasagna was interesting, and she didn't speak to me for Christmas. I am not an actress. I am absolutely not an actress. You don't need to be an actress, Luca said. No? You need to be a woman who texted a man at her worst possible moment, expecting the worst possible response, and instead got driven out of the city in an armored car. You need to be a woman who is confused, nervous, in over her head. You need to be a woman who is holding on to my arm because my arm is the only thing in the room that has not tried to kill her yet. She looked at him. I am that woman, Avery said quietly. Yes, Luca said. I know. That is why it will work. The SUV slowed. Outside the window, a pair of gates was coming into view at the end of a long curved drive. High iron, curled at the top, with a crest in the center that she could not make out in the dark. Beyond the gates, the driveway rose between 2 long rows of trees and disappeared into fog, and through the fog she could see, at the top of the rise, the dim yellow shape of a house with too many windows. The gates opened. The convoy passed through. They did not close behind her immediately. She turned and watched in the rear window as one of the trailing SUVs pulled through, and the gate began its slow, heavy swing back shut, and then the gate closed, and the latch clanged, and she heard it through 3 inches of armor plating, and that sound, that single metallic thunk in the fog, was the sound of her old life becoming something she could not walk back to. She looked forward again. The house was rising out of the hill now. Stone, ivy, 2 wings, windows lit in a pattern that she would later learn meant the master is home. Gravel crunched under the tires. Somewhere in the dark, a dog was barking. "Avery," Luca said. She turned. "Yes, before we get out." His eyes were very steady in the dim of the car. "Inside this house, from the moment the door opens, you are not Avery Cole, the graphic designer from 7th Street. You are my partner. You are the woman I have been quietly seeing for 6 weeks. You are the woman I have, for reasons none of the staff need to understand, moved in after a security concern in the city. When I take your hand, you take it back. When I put my hand at the small of your back, you lean into it, even slightly. When a man with a ponytail named Dario comes to dinner tomorrow and asks you, with a smile, how we met," he paused. "You tell him the truth." "The truth?" "Yes." "That you pulled me out of a wrecked rental car." "Yes." He'll believe that. He will not be able to disprove it. That is better than belief. In my line of work, unprovable is a kind of truth. She let out a breath. "Okay," she said. "Okay." "Luca." "Yes." "If I get this wrong, you won't. If I do," he looked at her. "Then I will fix it," he said. "That is my job, not yours. Your only job, Avery, is to not lie in ways that can be caught. Everything else, I will handle." The SUV stopped. Outside, in the gravel, she could see figures, 2 men in dark coats, a woman in an apron holding a dog by its collar, another man standing further back with his hands folded. They were all looking at the car. They were all waiting. Tommaso opened her door. Avery looked at Luca. Luca held out his hand. She took a breath, the deepest one she had taken in 4 hours. And she put her hand in his for the second time that night, and she stepped out of the car onto the gravel of a driveway that did not belong to her life, under a thin white moon in the hills, and she walked toward a house full of strangers on the arm of a man whose name, she now understood, made bars in Bensonhurst go quiet. Inside her chest, under the panic, under the fear, under the ruin of the day, something else had started up. It was small. It was warm. It was the first thing that had felt all night like it was hers. She did not have a name for it yet. She was not, she had already decided, going to go looking for one. Not tonight. The gravel under her sneakers sounded wrong. That was the first thing Avery noticed. It was the sound of a driveway that belonged to a different kind of woman than her, and her body knew it before her brain did. Every step gave her away. She walked like somebody who had always walked on concrete, and this drive had been laid for people who walked on money. The woman with the dog came forward first. She was maybe 60, short, broad across the shoulders, the way women who had spent their lives carrying things get broad. Silver hair pulled back in a knot, apron over a plain gray dress. The dog at her knee was an enormous brown thing with the patient, slightly mournful face of an animal that had seen a great deal and had opinions about most of it. "Signore?" the woman said. She dipped her head at Luca. Then her eyes moved to Avery, and they moved the way Elena's had moved, head to foot, cataloging, patient. "Marta," Luca said. "This is Avery." "Avery, this is Marta. She runs the house. She has run the house since before I was allowed into the kitchen by myself. If you need anything, you ask her. If you do not know where something is in this house, you ask her. If you are hungry at 3 in the morning, you ask her, and she will complain about it, but she will feed you." "Signore," Marta said, a warning note in her voice that was not quite a scold. "It is true, Marta. It is not necessary to say it. It is polite to say it." Marta made a small dismissive sound and looked properly at Avery. "Miss," she said, in an accent Avery could not quite place, something warmer than Italian, something that had been sanded by 40 years of American weather. "Welcome. You are tired. Are you hungry?" Avery started. Her throat was dry. "I don't know. I don't know if I am or not." "That means yes," Marta said. "Come. Stefano will take the bag. There is soup and bread in the kitchen. Everything else can wait." Behind Marta, a thin man with a silver mustache, Stefano, apparently, stepped forward and took the duffel from Tommaso with a small nod that did not acknowledge Avery at all. He vanished into the house before she had fully registered that he had come. The dog had come forward too. It put its enormous brown head against Avery's hip and pressed, once, with a weight that almost knocked her off balance. "That is Bruno," Luca said. "He does that to people he has decided to like. It is usually within 4 seconds of meeting them. I have stopped trying to explain him to guests." "Oh," Avery said. She put her hand on the dog's head. The fur was coarser than she expected, warmer. "Hi, Bruno." Bruno huffed out a breath against her sweatpants. "He likes her," Marta said, and something in her voice had changed, softened by a 1/4 inch. It was not approval, but it was not the absence of approval either. Marta turned and began walking toward the house. She did not ask Avery to follow. She assumed it. And Avery, with Bruno leaning against her leg and Luca's hand at the small of her back, followed. The house was warmer than it had any right to be. The first room they passed through was an entry hall with a black and white tile floor and a staircase that climbed in a slow curl to a landing above. An old clock in the corner ticked. Somewhere above them, a floorboard complained under someone's weight. There were oil paintings on the walls, the kind with heavy frames and faces Avery could not have named if she had stared at them for a week. She could feel people watching her. She could not see them, but she felt it. From the landing above, from the far end of the hallway, from behind a half-open door. The house was not empty. The house was full of men whose job it was to notice her. Marta led them through a dining room and into the kitchen, and the kitchen, at least, was recognizable as a room where a human being lived. Low ceiling, copper pots, a long wooden table with scars from decades of knives. A pot on the stove that was putting out a smell so good, Avery's stomach clenched around itself with an audible growl. "Sit," Marta said. Avery sat. A bowl appeared in front of her. Bread, already cut, already buttered. A glass of red wine that she had not ordered but was not going to refuse. Marta did not ask her what she wanted. Marta put food in front of her, the way Marta had apparently been putting food in front of people in this kitchen for 40 years. And the food arrived the way weather arrived, without discussion. "Eat," Marta said. Avery ate. The soup was thick and salty and full of things she could not identify, and it was the best soup she had eaten in her adult life, and she almost cried into it. She did not. She kept her face down in the bowl, and she ate, and she felt, for the first time in hours, like her body belonged to her again. Luca sat across from her. He did not eat. He drank a small glass of water and he watched her, and every so often his eyes moved to Marta and something passed between them that Avery did not catch. "You have not fed her all day," Marta said to Luca, in a tone that was more accusation than statement. "I have not had her all day, Marta. She looks like she has not eaten since yesterday. She has had a difficult evening." Marta's eyes went to Avery. "You have had a difficult evening?" "Yeah," Avery said into her soup. "That's one way to put it." Marta nodded once. She went back to the stove. She did not ask further. That, Avery would learn later, was how the house worked. Nobody asked what they did not need to know, because in a house like this, everyone's safety depended on not knowing too much. The staff did not ask. The guards did not ask. Even Marta, who had held Luca's mother's hand when she died, did not ask. You ate the soup. You went to bed. Tomorrow was tomorrow. Luca let her finish the bowl. Then he stood. "Come," he said. "I'll show you the room." Avery looked at Marta. Marta gave her a single nod that was almost a blessing. Bruno, who had positioned himself under the table on her feet, reluctantly got up and padded after her. They went up the stairs. At the top, Luca turned right, down a long hallway lined with more of those heavy-framed paintings, and stopped at a set of double doors. He pushed them open. The room was bigger than her entire apartment. That was the first thing. The second thing was the bed, which was a 4-poster, not the tacky Instagram kind, but the old, real kind, with curtains the color of dark wine tied back to each post. A fireplace on one wall, already lit, a low fire crackling behind a brass screen, 2 armchairs in front of it, a long window at the far end looking out over something dark that she understood after a second was the grounds, a lawn that rolled away into the fog. Her duffel was on a small bench at the foot of the bed, unopened, untouched. Somebody had laid out a robe on the chair, She stood in the doorway. "This is where I sleep," Luca said, "or where I am supposed to sleep. For our purposes, it is where you sleep." "And where do you sleep?" "Through there," he said, pointing to a door she had not noticed, set into the wall on the left. "There is a connecting room, a study, a couch. I am on the couch." You're on the couch?" "Yes." "In your own bedroom?" "In the study, which is connected to this bedroom." "Luca." "Yes." "I am not taking your bed." "You are." "I'm not." He looked at her. He had that look again, the faint amusement at one corner of his mouth, the "you're going to lose this argument" look. "Avery," he said, "this is not chivalry, this is geometry. You sleep here because this is the room Dario's people will look at when they come tomorrow. They will look at the closet to see whose clothes are in it. They will look at the nightstand to see whose book is on it. They will look at the pillow to see how many heads have been on it. You sleep here because this is the room that tells our story. I sleep on a couch because my story is already in the closet, and I do not need to be in the bed to prove it." She stared at him. "That is," she said, "genuinely the most depressing logistical explanation I have ever heard of a man not sleeping with a woman." He laughed, the second time that night. It was a better laugh than the one in the car. "Yes," he agreed. "I am aware." She walked into the room. Her sneakers made no sound on the rug. She put her hand on the post of the bed, and then, for a reason she could not name, she pulled her hand back. "The bathroom is through there," he said, pointing. "Clothes have been set out for you. There is toothpaste and a toothbrush on the counter. There is also," Marta put, I think, "a small bag of the kind of things women need. I did not ask her to specify. She said she handled it." "Okay." "I will be next door. If you need me, you knock on this one." He pointed. "Not hard. I will hear." "Luca." "Yes." She turned. She looked at him. Really looked at him. For the first time in the room's light, and the room's light was kinder than the SUV's, and under the gold of the lamps he looked tired. He had the kind of tired that sits behind the eyes, the kind that does not go away with sleep, the kind that a person carries because they have been carrying other people for a long time. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For, I don't know. For the soup. For the dog. For the fact that you haven't yet told me anything I can't forgive you for. The night is young, Avery." "Don't say that." He looked at her, and the faint amusement left his face, and what came into it instead was something more careful. "Get some sleep," he said. "Tomorrow is a long day." He turned. He walked to the connecting door. He paused, his hand on the knob, and he did not turn around. "There is a phone on the nightstand," he said. "It is new. The number is clean. Your old phone. I had Tommaso collect it from the car. It is in a drawer downstairs. It will stay there until this is over. I am sorry. Nobody is going to read your messages, but nobody is going to be able to track them either. That is the trade." "Okay. You can call your sister on the new one if you want. Tell her what you need to tell her, but do not tell her you are with me. Do not say my name. Do not tell her what the house looks like. Okay?" "And Avery." "Yes. The front gate. The one we came through. It is locked until morning. I tell you this so you do not spend the night thinking about it. You are not a prisoner. The gate is locked because of them, not because of you. Do you understand the difference?" She almost said yes. "I think so." "Good." He went through the door. The door clicked shut. She heard very faintly the sound of a man taking his coat off on the other side of a wall, and the whisper of a hanger, and then nothing. She stood in the middle of the room for a long time. Bruno had followed her in. She had not noticed. He had lain down on the rug at the foot of the bed, and he was watching her with his sad brown eyes, and when she sat down on the edge of the mattress, which was unfairly, stupidly soft, he heaved a great dog sigh and put his head on her sneakers and did not move for the next 4 hours. She showered. The water pressure was insane. The soap smelled like rosemary and something she did not have a word for. The robe that Marta had laid out was thicker than the towels at the apartment in the city. She put it on and she felt distantly like a different person, a person she did not yet know. She brushed her teeth with a toothbrush that was still in its wrapper. She put on the sleep set that someone, somewhere, had purchased on her behalf, in her exact size, in a color, a soft gray, that she would have chosen herself. She got into the bed. The sheets were cool against her legs, and the fire had burned down to embers, and the curtains on the bed swayed slightly in some small draft she could not locate. She picked up the new phone. She stared at it for a long moment. She dialed. Kat picked up on the second ring. "Hello?" Her sister's voice, cautious, the voice of a woman answering an unknown number at 11:30 on a Tuesday. "Who is this?" "Kat." "Avery?" Kat's voice changed, sharpened. "Whose phone is this? Why are you calling me at 11:30 from a number that starts with 917? Are you okay?" "I'm okay." "You sound weird." I'm fine. I'm safe." "Safe from what?" Avery closed her eyes. Bruno, at the end of the bed, shifted. "Kat," she said, "I'm going to tell you a thing, and I need you to not ask follow-up questions tonight. I am going to explain more later. Can you do that?" "Avery, you are scaring me." I know. Kat, listen. Marcus and I broke up." "Oh, thank God." "Tonight, I'm making you a cake." "Kat, I'm sorry, go." Something happened. After. I am fine. I am 100% fine, but I am not at my apartment. I am at a friend's house. Upstate. I'm going to be here for a little while. I don't know how long." "What friend?" "Kat." I said no questions. Okay, what friend?" "Catherine." "That's my full name. You're using my full name. This is serious. Avery. What friend?" "A friend I met. Do you remember the accident?" Silence on the other end. "The accident on the expressway?" "Yes." "The friend you met during the accident on the expressway?" "Yes." "Avery Margaret Cole." "Kat, I swear I am fine. He is a nice man. He pulled me out of the car. He gave me a number for emergencies, and something happened tonight with Marcus, and I called him, okay? I called him. That's all that happened. I called him, and he offered me a place to stay for a little bit, and I took it because I could not be in that apartment one more minute." She hated herself for how smoothly the lie came out. It was technically true. That was the worst part. Every single sentence was technically true, and every single sentence was a lie, and her sister on the other end of the line was a smart person. "Avery?" "Yes." "Is this a man?" "Yes." "Older?" "Yes." "And you are, what, staying with him for a few days after a breakup?" "Yes." "Avery, I am so not judging you. I cannot stress this enough, but this is the most insane thing you have ever done." "I know. I am going to need to meet him eventually." "You will." "Send me the address." "I can't." "Avery?" "I cannot, Kat. Not tonight. I will send it to you when I can. I promise. Please, for 2 days, let me sit with this." Silence again. Longer this time. "Are you crying?" "A little." "Is he good to you?" Avery thought about the cashmere throw. She thought about the soup. She thought about Marta saying that means yes. She thought about Luca on a couch on the other side of a wall because the geometry demanded it. "Yeah," she said. Her voice was thick. "Yeah, he's good to me." "Okay," Kat said. "Okay. 2 days. You have 2 days. If I don't hear from you in 48 hours, I am calling Mom, and we are both getting in a car. Please don't." 48 hours, Avery. I mean it. I know you do. I love you. I love you. I'm going to be so nice to you about this when I eventually get to meet him and tell him what a horrifying phone call this was." Avery laughed, watery. "Okay. Okay. Kat." "Yeah." "Don't text Marcus." "I would never." "Don't text him. Don't post about the breakup. Don't say my name on the internet for a couple of days. Can you just trust me on that?" A pause. "Avery? Please." "Okay," Kat said. "Okay, I trust you. 48 hours." 48 hours. They hung up. Avery lay in the dark with the phone face down on her chest, and she let herself, for the first time since the bathroom floor, actually cry. Not the heaving kind from the kitchen. The slow kind. The kind that just leaks out of a person because there is nowhere else for it to go. It soaked into the pillowcase, which was apparently some kind of silk, and she felt briefly bad about ruining it. And then she felt absurd for feeling bad about ruining it. And then Bruno, sensing her, heaved himself up onto the bed. He was not supposed to be up there, she could tell from the guilty way he did it. And he put his massive head on her shoulder and sighed one of his great dog sighs. And she cried into the fur on his neck. She slept eventually. When she woke up, it was light. Gray light, the color of a morning that had not yet decided what kind of day it was going to be. Bruno was gone. The fire had gone out. There was a tray on the small table by the window, and on the tray was a pot of coffee, a jug of cream, 2 slices of toast, and a folded piece of paper with her name on it in a hand she did not recognize. She sat up. She read the note. Breakfast. Whenever you're ready. Come downstairs in what you're comfortable in. Today you are recovering from a migraine. This is your excuse if you wish to take the morning slowly. Dario arrives at 7. We'll speak before. L. She poured the coffee with a hand that was only a little unsteady. She drank it looking out the window. The grounds went on for a long way. Trees, a walled garden, something that might have been a greenhouse in the distance. 2 men were walking the property line. They were not trying to be invisible. They were dressed in dark jackets, and they moved the way people move when they have done the same walk many times, and do not expect to find anything surprising, but know they might. Another man was sitting on a stone bench near the greenhouse, smoking. Every so often, without looking up, he would tilt his head the way Tommaso had tilted his last night, listening to an earpiece. So this was her Wednesday. She drank her coffee. She ate her toast. She sat for a long time watching the men walk the property, and she tried to understand that she was inside the line they were walking, that she was, for today, on the other side of the wall. When she went downstairs, Luca was in the kitchen. He was not dressed like last night. He was in dark slacks and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled to the elbow, and she could see his forearms, the tendons, the dark hair, a small tattoo on the inside of his right wrist that she could not quite make out. He was reading something on a tablet. Marta was at the stove, arguing with him about something in Italian, and he was answering her in English, which Avery understood, after a second, was a form of deflection. Marta threw up one hand and said, "Basta," and Luca laughed. Avery stood in the doorway. They both looked at her. "There she is," Marta said, warmer than last night. "Come, sit. Eggs?" Sure. Yes, please." "Good girl." Luca set the tablet down. "Morning," he said. "Morning. You slept?" "A little." "Good." She sat at the long table. Marta put a plate in front of her within 30 seconds. Eggs, a grilled tomato, something that looked like sausage but was probably more complicated than that, more of yesterday's bread. Avery ate. She had not realized how hungry she was until the plate was half gone. "I spoke to Kat last night," she said between bites, without looking up. "I told her I was at a friend's house. She's giving me 48 hours before she calls my mother, and they both come looking." "That's fine." "Is it?" "Yes." "Are you going to let that happen?" He considered. "I'm going to handle it," he said, "in a way that will not frighten her. A number will be passed. Someone will call her tomorrow morning. A woman, pleasant, a lawyer's voice. She will say that you have hired her on a confidential matter, and you are safe, and you will be in touch within the week. Your sister will believe this because the voice will be correct, and because the number will look professional, and because women your age do sometimes hire lawyers after bad breakups. It will buy us time. It will not cost you anything." "Cost me anything? I do not want to lie to your family, Avery." She looked at him. "You're going to, though." "I am going to minimize, which is different from lying, and which, more importantly, is safer for them." She set down her fork. "Luca." "Yes. When this is over, whatever this is, the leak, the mirror, all of it. When it's over. You're going to let me call her and explain." He was quiet for a long moment. "Yes," he said. "If you want that, yes. And the calling of lawyers and the buying of time. It won't happen to my mother." "No. Promise me." He looked at her. Gray eyes. Unflinching. "I promise you, Avery." Something in her settled. Just a little. Marta at the stove had very pointedly not been listening. She clattered a pan. Luca checked the clock on the wall. Dario will be here at 7, he said. We have about 9 hours. I would like to walk you through what the house looks like. Who works here? Who you can speak to, and who you should simply smile at. Where the cameras are, so you are not startled by them. And I would like to walk you through the story we are telling tonight, line by line. I would like there to be no surprises. Does that sound all right? Yeah. 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 Let's do it. They spent the morning walking. He showed her the ground floor, the dining room, the drawing room, the library, which was 2 stories and had a ladder on a track and smelled like old paper and leather and faintly cigar. He showed her the long parlor where dinner would be served, with its long dark table and its high windows that looked out onto the west lawn. He showed her the small room off the kitchen where Marta lived, the door always a little open because Marta did not like closed doors. He did not show her upstairs on the other side of the house. He did not show her the basement. There were doors they passed that he simply walked past, and she learned very fast to walk past them too. He introduced her to people. Stefano, the thin man from the night before, who turned out to be the house manager and who was less cold than he had seemed. A woman named Julia, early 30s, who handled some kind of administrative side of the estate. A young man named Alessandro, who walked the property with a radio in his ear and who Luca called Sandro, and who smiled at Avery with a quick flash of good teeth. 2 other men, Raphael, older, quiet, a scar through one eyebrow, and a man named Pietro, who did not smile and whose eyes moved like Tommaso's. There were others. There were always others. She understood by noon that the estate contained perhaps 20 men she would never be introduced to, men whose job it was to be invisible and to stay invisible, and who were, at all times, armed. At the greenhouse, Luca stopped. "Here's the thing," he said. "Yes." "About tonight." "Okay." "Dario is going to be very charming." "Okay." "He is going to compliment you. He is going to laugh at your jokes. He is going to ask you questions that will feel like he is interested in you as a person, because the questions are designed to feel that way. Everything he does tonight is designed. Do not forget that. Do not relax." "I won't." He will tell a story at some point that will seem to be a story about his family or his childhood. It will actually be a story about loyalty. He always does this. He is telling me through the story that he is watching. Do not react to the story. I will be the one who reacts to the story. You will smile and eat your dinner. Okay. He will ask you how we met. Yes. You will tell him about the accident. You will tell him about the number. You will tell him that you were lonely and going through something and you texted the number expecting a stranger and got me. You will tell him it was stupid, self-deprecating. Women your age, Avery, young women, embarrassed women. They do that. They make themselves smaller when they tell embarrassing stories. Do that. Easy. He looked at her. Is it? She laughed, short. I was raised by a single mother in New Jersey, Luca. I have been making myself smaller since I was 12. Something in his face tightened. That is unfortunate, he said, but useful. It's how it is. He nodded. He looked out over the grounds. The sun had come up properly now, and the fog had burned off, and the lawn went very green under a thin, high sky. There is one more thing, he said. Yeah. At some point in the evening, I am going to touch you. Okay. Not improperly. I am going to put my hand on the back of your neck, under your hair. I will do it casually, in the middle of a conversation, while I am looking at someone else. It is a thing men like me do to women we are sleeping with. It is very specific. Dario will see it. He will file it. Okay? Do not flinch. I won't. You don't know that. She stopped. I won't. He looked at her for a long moment. There is also a chance, he said, that at some point in the evening, one of his men will try to get you alone, in a hallway, on a trip to the bathroom, on the way to the car, not to harm you, to question you. If this happens, do not try to be clever. Do not try to outwit him. Freeze. Look terrified. Say, "Excuse me, I need to find Luca." Walk. If he touches your arm, you scream. You do not scream loud. You do not scream a lot. You just say Luca once at a normal volume. I will hear. I will always hear. Luca. Yes. Are you going to be armed tonight? He looked at her. Yes. In the house? Yes. At dinner? Yes. Okay, she said. Her voice did not shake, which surprised her. Okay. He watched her. You are handling this, he said. Better than I thought you would. I haven't processed it yet. I know. When I do, it's going to be bad. I know. I want to be somewhere soft when that happens. You will be. They stood there for a while. Bruno came loping across the lawn toward them, his tongue out, and he shoved his head into Avery's hand as if he had been looking for her for an hour. Luca's phone rang. He pulled it out, looked at it. His face did not change, but she had, in 18 hours, learned to read the little things. The slight tightening around the mouth, the barely there flex of the jaw. What? She said. Dario, he said. He is coming early. How early? 4 o'clock. She looked at her watch. It was almost noon. So I have 4 hours. You have 4 hours. Okay? Avery? Yes. He put his hand at the small of her back, through her sweater, just for a second. A test, maybe. A rehearsal. You are going to be fine, he said. She leaned into the hand. Not much. Just a little. Just enough that he would feel it. Okay, she said. Bruno sighed against her knee. And the three of them, the dog, the man, and the woman who had, 19 hours earlier, sent one stupid text to the wrong person, turned and walked back toward the house, across a lawn that did not belong to her, under a thin high sky that was about to get complicated. 4 hours turned out to be both too long and not long enough. That was the thing about waiting. Time moved the way it felt like moving, and on that Wednesday afternoon it moved like a pulse. Marta took over. That was the first thing. Marta, who had watched Luca walk her back across the lawn, took one look at Avery's sweatpants and sneakers and said simply, Come, we work. Work? You cannot meet him like that. Like what? Marta did not even dignify the question. She was already climbing the stairs, one hand on the banister, and Avery, who had spent 29 hours being told what to do by people who seemed to be better at living than she was, followed. The closet in the bedroom, which Avery had not properly opened last night, was not a closet. It was a room. 2 walls of hanging space, a third wall of shelves, a long mirror, a velvet bench in the middle. Half of the hanging space was empty. The other half was full. Dresses, coats, silk shirts in colors she would not have picked for herself, but which, when Marta held one up to her face, she understood had been picked very carefully for her. Who did this? Avery said. Julia, Marta said, without looking up. She is good at this. She has done it for other women. Other women Luca has. Marta's eyes cut sideways. It is not my place to say. Marta. It is not my place, signorina. Please. Marta sighed. She took down a dress, dark green, long-sleeved, high-necked, the kind of quiet expensive that looked plain until you saw the seams. She held it up against Avery's shoulders in the mirror. There have been women, Marta said. Carefully. He is 48 years old. Of course there have been women. But never here. Marta's voice had gone flat. Never in this house. Not since his mother died. Oh, he brought one once, maybe 10 years ago. A beautiful woman. Stayed 3 nights. Cried in the car going back to the city. After her, he stopped bringing them up here. He has... She paused, choosing words. He has arrangements in the city. Arrangements are not women. Arrangements do not sit at this table. You are sitting at this table. Because it's fake. Marta looked at her in the mirror. Signorina, she said, whatever it is not fake. You are in the house. He has put you in the house. You are wearing this dress tonight, and you will sit at his right at the table tonight, and a man named Dario will try to find a seam in you, and he will not find one, because I am going to help you iron your seams. But do not say fake in this house. Words, here, they become what they are. Do you understand? Avery looked at the woman in the mirror, pale, tired, red around the eyes, a dress the color of a forest held up to her collarbones. Yeah, she said, quiet. I get it. Good, take off your clothes. They worked. Avery tried on the green dress, and Marta looked at her and said, "No?" And then a gray one, and Marta said, "Closer." And then a dark red one, long sleeves, a neckline that was not plunging but was present. And Marta stepped back, and Marta said nothing for 5 seconds, which was the first time Marta had not said anything in 6 hours. "That one," Marta said finally. "It's a lot." "It is correct." "Marta, it says you are a woman who was a little frightened to come to dinner and who was brave enough to wear red anyway. That is the story. Wear the story." A young woman Avery had not met yet, Julia, the stylist, arrived at 2 o'clock with a small case and spent an hour on Avery's hair and a quieter, more careful hour on her face. Julia did not talk. Julia put things on Avery's skin that Avery had never heard of, in movements so light they were almost not movements. And Avery sat and closed her eyes and tried not to think. At 3:30, Julia handed her a pair of earrings. "These belong to the signore's mother," Julia said. Her voice was quiet. "He asked me to bring them." Avery opened her eyes. In the little box, 2 small drop earrings, gold, pearls, old in the way old things are, not shiny, not new, just correct. "I can't wear these. He asked me to bring them." "Julia." "I don't know the logic, signorina. I only know the instruction." Avery picked one up. It was heavier than it looked. She had the absurd, sharp sense that Luca had, sometime between breakfast and now, thought about this moment and decided that the most convincing thing a woman could wear in front of Dario Falcone was a thing that had belonged to the one woman in this house whose memory no one, not even Dario, would challenge. She put them in. In the mirror, with her hair done and her face painted and the red dress and the earrings, she looked like a woman she did not recognize. That was the point. That was, she understood, the whole point. By 3:45, she was standing at the top of the staircase in a pair of heels that fit her better than any heels she had ever paid for herself. And the house below had gone quiet in a particular way. The staff was at their stations. Tommaso was at the door. Luca was in the drawing room, and he was in a charcoal suit that had been cut by someone who loved their job. He looked up when she came down the stairs. He did not say anything. He did not smile. But his eyes changed, just a little. A small, almost involuntary movement, like a man seeing something he had not, until that moment, fully pictured. And then his composure came back, settled, and he crossed the room to the foot of the stairs and held out his hand. "Avery. Luca. You look—" He stopped. "Is that a full sentence?" His mouth almost smiled. "You look like a woman who belongs in that dress." "That's not a sentence I would have predicted you saying." "I did not predict it either." She took his hand. He did not pull. He just held. He walked her off the last step and into the drawing room, and there he let go and turned her gently by the shoulders so she was facing him, and he looked at her the way a man looks at a painting he is about to carry down a narrow staircase, calculating, careful, thinking about the corners. "The earrings," she said. "Yes." "Luca, they belong to my mother." "Yes. I know what you're going to say. You don't have to say it. I feel like I shouldn't be wearing them." "That is the correct feeling. Wear them anyway." "Dario knew my mother. He was in this house when she was dying. He sat with her on the last day. He will see those earrings, and he will not ask a single question about you tonight that has teeth in it. Not one. He will not dare." That's not fair." "To whom?" "To her." He was quiet. She liked women who were not afraid to be in rooms they had not been invited to. He said, finally, "I think she would have found this funny." "Found what funny?" "All of it." He looked at her for a long second, and then, before she could say anything else, Tommaso spoke from the doorway. "Signore, 2 cars at the gate." Luca's face changed. It was like a curtain dropping. The small warmth he had let her see for a few seconds in the drawing room was gone, and in its place was a man she did not, she understood, actually know. A man whose body was the same, but whose readiness had gone up by a factor she could not measure. Nothing on his face moved, but every part of him had, in the space of a breath, decided something. "Let them up," he said. 2 cars, signore. Dario and 3. 3, not 4. 3. Who is missing? Raphael. A pause. "Interesting," Luca said. "Let them up." Tommaso nodded and disappeared. Luca turned back to Avery. He did not touch her. He did not move closer. He just looked at her, and the look said a great deal. Raphael is his cousin, the lawyer. He was supposed to come. He is not coming. That means either Dario is giving me a gift, leaving the lawyer at home to show he wants a conversation, not a battle, or he wants me to think he is giving me a gift so that I relax. Either way, we do not relax. Do you understand? I understand. Good. Luca. Yes. I think I'm going to throw up. He almost smiled. Don't. The dress is expensive. She laughed. It was a small, shaky sound. It did what laughing does. It loosened her shoulders by half an inch. He saw it happen. You're going to be fine, he said. Remember. He asks how we met. You tell the truth. You were in an accident. I was the stranger who stopped. You were lonely, months later, after a bad night, and you texted a stranger's number, not expecting an answer, and I answered. That is all. And if he asks why I'm up here, because things in the city got complicated with the ex, and I do not like complications, so I brought you somewhere quiet. And if he asks how long I'm 6 weeks, since early March, not longer. Okay. And if he asks if you love me, she looked up. You smile, Luca said, and you say, ask me again in 6 weeks. She swallowed. Okay, she said. Okay. Outside on the gravel, 2 cars were coming up the drive. They were black, like Luca's, but they were not quite the same. A little older, a little less. Tommaso had chosen the phrase 2 cars and 3 for a reason. Luca's own convoys came in 3s. Dario had come in 2s. That, Avery understood without being told, was not an accident. The cars pulled up in the turnaround. Doors opened. Dario Falcone got out of the first one. She had pictured him wrong. That was the first thing. She had pictured someone oilier, louder, the kind of man who bought his watches off an Instagram ad. Dario was none of those things. Dario was maybe 50, shorter than Luca by an inch, trim, with hair still mostly dark and a close-cut beard going to silver at the chin. His suit was a softer gray than Luca's. His shoes were older, and he moved with the particular slow ease of a man who had never, in his adult life, needed to convince anyone of anything. 2 men with him. One very large, one very small. The small one worried Avery more. The small one had the eyes. Dario came up the steps alone, and Tommaso opened the door for him, and he walked into the entry hall as if he had walked into it 1,000 times, because he had. Luca, he said. His voice was warm. Not fake warm, actually warm, which was, Avery understood within 3 seconds, worse. My friend. Dario. They embraced. Not a hug, an embrace. The 2-handed kind, palms pressing on the back, a brief press of cheek to cheek on each side. When they stepped back, Dario's hand lingered for a half-second on Luca's shoulder, the way an old friend's hand might linger, and Avery saw Luca's jaw do the small tightening thing that meant he had noticed and was choosing to let it pass. Then Dario looked at her. It was a slow look. It was not a rude look. It did not linger anywhere. It should not have lingered. But it was the look of a man who had been told there was a new painting in this room, and who wanted to know who had painted it, and who had bought it, and what it was worth, and why it had been hung on this particular wall. And this, he said softly, must be Avery. Dario Falcone. She gave him her hand. He took it. He did not shake it. He turned it just slightly and bent over it, not kissing it, just the suggestion of kissing it, and then he straightened, and his eyes came up and met hers, and they were dark and alert, and nothing about them was warm anymore. A pleasure, he said. Luca has told me nothing about you, which means he likes you very much. He is miserly about the women he likes. Oh, she said. She let her smile wobble. She let the pink come up into her cheeks. I don't know about that. Don't argue with me, Cara. I have known him 40 years. I know how he is. Well, then you have the advantage. I always do. A small, pleased smile. Luca, you must introduce me to her properly. Come, come. I am hungry, and I would like a drink. They moved through to the drawing room. Stefano had already set out drinks. A bottle of red breathing on the sideboard, a smaller bottle of Amaro, whiskey for those who wanted it. Luca poured. Dario took the whiskey. Avery took, at Luca's small nod, a glass of red she did not really want but held to have something to do with her hands. Dario's two men, the big one and the small one, were not in the room. They had gone, at some invisible signal, somewhere else in the house. Avery did not know where. She did not ask. "Sit, sit," Dario said, waving them to the couches, as if it were his drawing room. "Luca, come. Tell me everything." "No, do not tell me everything. Tell me the interesting things." "Avery, sit. Come closer. Don't let him sit next to you like that. He hogs the arm of the sofa. He has done it since he was a boy." Luca sat next to her. Not closer than the story demanded, not farther. His thigh did not touch hers, but his hand, after a moment, came to rest along the back of the couch behind her shoulders, and in a gesture that was so casual she almost missed the choreography. His thumb brushed once, lightly, the back of her neck under her hair. She did not flinch. Dario saw it. She could tell he had seen it because his eyes went for 1 second to Luca's hand, and then back to her face, and then to her earrings. The earrings registered on him. She watched it happen. Something tightened around his mouth. A tiny movement, one she would not have noticed a day ago, and then smoothed. He lifted his glass. "To Avery," he said, "the mystery of the season." "To Avery," Luca said, quiet. They drank. "Now," Dario said, settling back, "tell me how you two met. Luca will not tell me. Luca has gone shy in his old age." Avery took a breath. She thought about Marta. Where the story? "We met," she said, "when he pulled me out of a wrecked rental car on the Long Island Expressway." Dario looked at her. "Did he?" he said. "Last September. I'd been at a bridal shower for my cousin. My rental sedan got clipped by a drunk guy in a pickup truck. I spun out. I don't remember a lot of it. I remember I was bleeding from somewhere on my face, and I had my hands on the wheel, and I couldn't remember a single phone number. Not my mom's, not my sister's, nobody's. And then this man." She looked at Luca, shy, like a woman telling a story in which she was still a little embarrassed. "This man just appeared at my window, told me not to move my legs until the ambulance came, sat with me on the guardrail." "You stopped?" Dario said to Luca. "On the expressway." "She stopped first," Luca said. "For the man in the pickup." "Ah." Dario smiled, delighted, as if the story had turned out to have a twist. "So the hero of the story is you, Kara." "I don't know about hero." "I do. I know a good story. Go on." "He gave me a number. He told me if I ever needed anything. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know who he was. I liked his voice. I saved the number, and then I forgot about it, kind of, and I went on with my life. I had a boyfriend. It was not a great relationship. It got worse, and last week I found out he had been cheating on me for 8 months, and She stopped. She dropped her eyes. She swirled her wine. She let her voice go smaller. "I sent a message. It was meant to be for him. The ex. It was not a nice message. I had been drinking, a little, and I sent it to the wrong person. I sent it to the number I had saved in September. I sent it to Luca." Dario was watching her. "And what did Luca do?" he said softly. "He called me." "Called you?" "Well, texted me, and then showed up at my apartment. And you had not seen him in 7 months, not once." Dario laughed, the kind of laugh that showed teeth. "Luca, my friend. Luca, amore, this is a romantic story." "It is not a romantic story," Luca said mildly. "It is a ridiculous one." "It is both." "It is both," Luca agreed. "And you?" Dario looked back at Avery. "A woman who sends furious texts to the wrong number in the middle of the night. A woman whose phone is, let us say, not always cautious. You do not seem to be the sort of woman who would interest my dear friend Luca, who is, forgive me, Luca, a little controlling." Avery smiled. It was a small, real smile. She could feel it. "Maybe that's why he likes me." "Oh," Dario said. "Oh, Kara." He looked delighted. He looked for a second like a man who had come here prepared to find a professional actress reciting lines and had found, instead, a woman who was genuinely in a little over her head and who had stopped trying to pretend otherwise. The earrings, the blush when Luca had brushed her neck, the way she'd said, "I had been drinking." A little things. Honest little things. Avery was not lying. That was the whole trick. That was what Luca had understood last night in the car when he'd said, "You don't have to act. You have to be the woman who is confused." Because she was the woman who was confused, and Dario, for all his dangerous wattage, was a man who had spent 40 years reading lies. He was excellent at lies. He was less excellent at truth that had been arranged to look like a lie. "And the ex-boyfriend," Dario said, "the one who sent you to the wrong number, where is he?" "In the city," Luca said. Bland. "Probably at his mother's. Probably knows nothing. He knows she left him. That is all he needs to know." Luca. Dario. "You would not be thinking of—" "I am not thinking of anything, Dario. He is not a problem worth solving. He is noise. Men like him become problems. Then he becomes a problem, and then he becomes solved. But not tonight. Tonight we eat." Marta appeared in the doorway. She was in a clean apron. Her silver hair had been freshly pinned. "Signore," she said, "dinner." "Marta, tesoro," Dario said, rising. "You are still the most beautiful woman in this house." "I am the only woman over 50 in this house, signore." "A detail." Marta snorted. She turned and vanished. Avery, standing, saw Luca's mouth quirk. Not a smile, just the almost smile. And she understood with a small internal lurch that he loved this old woman the way a son loves his mother. Dinner took place in the long parlor. The table had been set for 6, although only 4 were eating. Luca, Avery, Dario, and a man named Giacomo who turned out to be Dario's other lieutenant, the small one with the eyes, who had materialized from wherever he had been and was now seated across from Avery. He said almost nothing. He ate slowly. He watched her while she ate. She ate. She did not hurry. She did not speak unless spoken to. She let Luca run the conversation because Luca was better at it than she was, and because that was what a woman 6 weeks into a new relationship would do in a room of powerful men who scared her. Dario told a story. She had been warned. She recognized it when it started. It was a story, on the surface, about his father. About a summer in the old country. About a man named Vincenzo, who had been his father's driver for 20 years. The story had a cadence. Dario had told it before. His hands moved in small, confident gestures. The staff, at the edges of the room, had gone very still. "And so," Dario said, "my father comes home one day. He has been in the city, business. He comes into the house, he puts his coat on the hook, and Vincenzo, this good man, this man who has driven my father for 20 years, Vincenzo asks him, 'How was the trip?' Not, you understand, how was business. Not did everything go well. He asks, 'How was the trip?'" He took a sip of wine. My father smiles. He says, "The trip was fine, Vincenzo." He goes into his study. He closes the door. He calls 3 men. Within 4 hours, Vincenzo is gone. Not harmed, not threatened, just gone. A bus ticket to Naples, a new name, a small amount of money. My father never spoke of him again. "Why," Dario said, looking around the table. He let his eyes rest at the end on Luca's face. "Because Vincenzo had asked the wrong question. How was the trip? Vincenzo knew my father had not gone on a trip. Vincenzo had driven him that morning to a warehouse on the docks. Vincenzo knew exactly where my father had been. The question gave him away. A man who asks you how your trip was when he knows you did not take a trip. He has rehearsed not knowing. And a man who rehearses not knowing, my father used to say, is a man who already knows too much." The table was silent. Avery looked down at her plate. Luca took a sip of his wine. He did not look at Dario. He set the glass down. "Your father," he said, quiet, "was a careful man." "He was." "He is missed." "He is." Dario smiled. It was a gentle smile. His eyes did not smile. He was looking at Luca, and Luca was looking at him. And between them, across the table, there was a whole second conversation Avery could not hear. Giacomo was looking at Avery. She lifted her fork. She took a small bite of the fish Marta had put in front of her. It was buttery. It tasted like nothing. "That is a sad story," she said. Light. She let her voice be a woman who did not quite understand. "Poor Vincenzo." Dario turned to her. "Poor Vincenzo," he agreed. "Your father sounds like he had a lot on his mind." "He did. He always did." "My dad was not a complicated man," she said. "He sold insurance in New Jersey." "Insurance," Dario repeated. "Mostly car." There was a pause, and then Dario laughed. A real laugh this time, surprised. The kind of laugh that came from somewhere unguarded. "Dio mio, Luca," he said. "Where did you find her?" "On a highway," Luca said. "On a highway?" "On a highway." He shook his head. "You have never in your life brought a woman home who sold insurance." "No," Luca agreed. "Her father sold insurance." "Her father sold insurance. She is a graphic designer." "A graphic designer!" "She makes," Luca said, a dry inflection in his voice that Avery had not heard him use yet, "book covers. Mostly romance." Avery felt her cheeks go pink without trying. "Some memoir." "Some memoir," Luca corrected. "Dio mio," Dario said again, and he was still laughing, and Giacomo across the table was not laughing but was watching, and Avery understood in a way she had not understood an hour ago that this was the trap. Dario was not angry. Dario was not suspicious. Dario was interested, and a Dario who was interested was a Dario who was going to come back. He was going to ask her to lunch. He was going to invite her into the city. He was going to arrange sometime in the next week a moment alone with her, and in that moment he was going to ask her one question, and based on the answer to that question, he was going to decide what to do with her. This was not over. This was starting. She felt very distantly the touch of Luca's knee against hers under the table. Once. A signal. "Stay with me." She smiled at Dario. She let her eyes crinkle. She let the red wine and the candles do some of the work. "I don't think I'm his usual type," she said. "Cara," Dario said. "Do not be modest. You are—" A sound. It came from outside. A flat, hollow sound. Not a gunshot. Not yet. Something more mechanical, something more distant. Avery felt it in the soles of her feet before she understood what it was. Luca's hand came down on her thigh under the table. Not romantic, not for show. A grip, precise. Fingers digging in. Hold still. A second sound. Then a third. Then, very clearly, the first unmistakable crack of a rifle. Gunfire. Close. A shout. Outside on the lawn. Then another. Then a burst. 3 shots. 4. 5. A sound like someone tearing a long piece of canvas down the middle of the world. Luca was on his feet before anyone else had processed it. His chair was down. His hand came off her thigh, and he had pulled her up with him. One motion, and he was moving her toward the far wall of the parlor, his body between her and the window. And in the space of 2 seconds, she watched his face do something she had not, in the 29 hours of knowing him, seen it do. He had gone calm. "Under the table," he said. His voice was lower, flatter, almost bored. "Now, Avery, now." She went under the table. The china was rattling. A glass was spilling, slow. A red-black puddle across the linen above her head. Across the room, Giacomo was not under anything. Giacomo was on his feet. Giacomo had a gun. Giacomo had it out and up and was looking at Dario, not at Luca. And Dario's face had changed, and Dario was saying something very fast in a language that was not English. And Stefano, the thin man with the mustache, had stepped into the doorway with something Avery had not known he had. A compact, ugly little firearm held low against his hip. Another burst of fire. Closer. From the lawn side. A window on the west end of the parlor cracked. Not shattered, cracked. The pane going into a spiderweb, a single neat hole at its center. "Jew!" Marta shrieked from the kitchen. "Jew! Jew! Jew!" "Dario," Luca said, still calm, still somehow quiet. "Whose men?" "Not mine." "Whose men, Dario?" "Luca, I swear to you, on my father's name." A shot ripped the glass of the far window out in a white spray. Someone screamed on the lawn. Not a man's scream. A woman's. Avery heard her own voice, distantly, make a sound. Luca was on the floor with her now. one hand on the back of her neck, pressing her head down, his whole body curled between her and the windows. His other hand, she saw, with a lurch, holding a gun she had not known he had. It had come from somewhere under his jacket. It was black. It was small. It was in his grip like a pen. "Avery," he said, against her ear. "Quiet. Listen to me." "Yes." "This is not Dario. Okay? This is someone else. Okay. I'm going to get you out of this room. Okay." Another burst, louder, inside the house now, on the other side of the parlor wall. Men shouting, men running, the heavy thud of something falling. Furniture or a body. "On three," Luca said. "You run. You do not look back. You go through the kitchen. Marta knows. There's a door behind the pantry. It goes down. You go down. Tommaso will be there. Do you understand? Luca, do you understand?" "Yes." "Three," Luca said. And they ran. Three. Her heels were wrong for running. That was her first clear thought. Ridiculous, stupid, human. She had kicked them off before she had consciously decided to, and the marble was cold under her bare feet, and the red dress was bunched in one fist at her thigh, and Luca had her other hand, and they were moving. A window exploded inward behind them. Not a small hole this time. The whole pane came apart in a rain of glass that sounded like coins hitting the floor. Luca shoved her sideways, hard against the wall of the dining room, and his body turned and something in his hand flashed twice, two flat, professional cracks. And on the lawn outside, a man made a noise that was not a word and stopped making noises entirely. "Go," Luca said. "Go." She went. Through the dining room. Her shoulder hit the edge of the sideboard and she felt it, but did not feel it. Into the short hallway that led to the kitchen. The lights were off now. Someone had killed them, which meant someone in the house was thinking. And she ran toward the kitchen on instinct, on the memory of Luca walking her through it that morning, on the faint smell of onions that had not yet faded. In the kitchen, Marta was on the floor. For a second, Avery's heart stopped. Then Marta moved. She was not hit. She was crouched. She was crouched behind the island with a butcher's knife in one hand and a phone in the other. And when she saw Avery, she did not speak. She just pointed. Pantry. Avery ran for the pantry. The door was already half open. Inside, the shelves were neat, jars of oil, sacks of flour. And at the back, where there should have been a wall, there was not. The panel had been pushed aside. A set of narrow stone steps went down into the dark. Tommaso was halfway up them. "Miss?" he said. His voice was a low rumble. He grabbed her by the wrist. He did not look at her face. He was looking past her, at the doorway. "Down." "Luca. Coming. Down." He pulled. She went. The steps were old. They had been laid by someone 100 years ago who had not been thinking about a woman running down them in a ball gown, barefoot, in the dark. She almost fell twice. Tommaso's hand on her wrist was the only thing keeping her upright, and his hand was the size of a ham, and it was not gentle, and she did not care. Above, through the pantry ceiling, she heard another burst of gunfire. Closer. Inside now. A man shouting in Italian. A second shout. Answering. Then silence. Then the sound of something heavy being dragged across the floor above. At the bottom of the stairs was a corridor. It was cooler down there. Stone walls, electric bulbs in cages on the ceiling, the smell of old wine. They were under the house. She understood that. A cellar, running the length of the building, with doors on either side and something at the far end. A second set of steps going back up, she thought, or a door to the outside. Tommaso moved her fast. "Where are we going?" she panted. "Panic room." "A what?" "Old house, miss. They had them even in the 30s. Was her mother's." "Whose mother?" "Signore Moretti's." He pulled her through a doorway on the left. The door was heavy. It was steel behind a face of wood, and when he slammed it closed behind them, the 3 deadbolts slid home of their own accord, a mechanical sound like a piano closing. Inside, a bare room, concrete floor, a bench against one wall, a small screen in the corner showing 4 different black and white views of the house above. Marta came in after them. Avery had not realized Marta had followed. The older woman was red in the face and still holding her knife, and she sat down heavily on the bench and put her hand on her chest and said something under her breath that was not in English. Tommaso checked the door, then he checked it again. Then he pulled a phone from his pocket, a different phone, a thicker one, and he said 2 words into it and put it down. "Luca," Avery said. "Coming." "Where is he?" "Coming, miss." "Tommaso." "He is coming." He did not look at her when he said it. Avery understood with a small cold twist that Tommaso was using the voice a man used when he was saying a thing so that it would be true. The screen in the corner flickered. She watched. View 1 was the drawing room. Empty. A chair was on its side. A lamp was broken. View 2 was the front hall. 2 men on the floor. Not Luca, not Dario. She did not know them. View 3 was the lawn. Dark. A white muzzle flash in the trees, quick and gone. View 4 was the kitchen. Luca was in the kitchen. He was not alone. A man was on the floor by the stove. The big one of Dario's, she was almost sure. Luca was bent over him, one hand on his shoulder. Another man was standing in the kitchen doorway with a rifle, and Luca turned without looking and shot him once in the thigh and once in the shoulder, and the man dropped and Luca straightened and the camera caught his face for half a second, and his face was a face Avery did not know. It was not angry, it was not afraid, it was empty. And that emptiness, that complete absence of heat, was the scariest thing she had seen in her life. He spoke to someone off camera. He nodded once. He put a hand to his ribs. She saw it, the small pat, the quick check. And his hand came away clean, and he moved out of frame. Avery realized she had stopped breathing. Marta saw her face. "He is all right, Kara," Marta said, quietly. "He is always all right. I know what he is. I have known him since he was 10. He is all right." "There was a man in the doorway." "Yes, and that man is not in the doorway anymore." "Marta." "Yes, Kara. I don't know how to be okay with this." Marta looked at her. Her eyes were kind and very tired and 100 years old. "You do not have to be okay with it tonight," Marta said. "Tonight you just have to be alive. The being okay is for tomorrow, and the day after, and the year after." Avery sat down next to her on the bench. The dress was ruined. There was blood on the hem, not hers, she did not know whose. Her hand was shaking. Marta took it. Marta's hand was warm and dry, and it smelled faintly like garlic. It was the most comforting thing Avery had touched in 2 days. Somewhere upstairs, the gunfire slowed. 3 shots. A pause. 2 more. A longer pause. Then nothing. For a long time, nothing. Avery counted. She got to 94 before she stopped counting because she could not hold the numbers anymore. The door of the panic room clicked. Tommaso was on his feet instantly, his weapon up. Marta did not move. Avery did not move. The deadbolts rolled back. A code entered from the other side, and the door swung open. Luca stood in the doorway. He was alive. That was the first thing her eyes did. They confirmed it piece by piece, like an inventory. Alive, upright, head, shoulders, both arms, both legs. There was blood on his shirt, on the white shirt, and a long diagonal smear across the ribs where he had pressed his hand earlier. But the blood was not his, she thought, she hoped, because his face was not the face of a man who was leaking. His jacket was gone. His hair was out of place for the first time since she had met him. There was a thin red line across the side of his neck, a graze from something that had come closer than he was going to tell her about. "Avery." "I'm okay," she said, automatically. "I'm okay. I'm fine. I'm—" He crossed the room in 3 steps and pulled her up off the bench, and for the first time in 30 hours he held her. Not the hand at the small of her back, not the thumb brushing her neck for choreography. His arms came around her and he pulled her into his chest, and she felt, against her cheekbone, the hammering of a heart that, for all the calm he had just performed upstairs, had not, it turned out, been calm at all. She made a sound, not a word, just a release. Something in her chest unknotting all at once, violently, and she was crying into the shoulder of a bloody white shirt, and his hand was flat on the back of her head, and he was saying her name very quietly, over and over, into her hair. "Avery, Avery, Avery. I know. I thought you were. I know, I'm here. Don't do that again. I won't. You promise me." A small pause. A very small, human pause. I promise you I will try, Luca said. She laughed. It was a wet, terrible laugh. That is the most honest thing you have ever said to me. Yes. I hate it. I know. He eased her back, just enough to look at her face. His eyes moved over her, the same inventory she had just done on him, and whatever he saw he accepted, and his hand came up and he wiped the tears off her cheeks with his thumb. He was not gentle about it. He was not rough. He was, like everything else about him, simply certain. You are not hit, he said. No. Not cut. No. Well, she looked down at her shoulder. My shoulder is going to bruise. Yes? I pushed you into the sideboard. I apologize. Don't. I pushed you into the sideboard, but I was going to push you into something, and a sideboard was the softest thing available. Luca. Yes. Is it over? He looked at her for a long moment. Come, he said. I want to show you something. She did not understand. Her legs were not fully hers yet, but she went because there was nothing else to do. Marta stood. Signore, stay, rest. Stefano will be here in a minute. Stefano is fine. Signore, he's fine, Marta. A hand. He will not like it tomorrow. Tonight, he is fine. Marta closed her eyes. She crossed herself, which was the one thing in the room that could be described as anything near religious, and Luca pretended not to see. He turned Avery toward the door. Tommaso fell in behind them. Tommaso had not holstered his weapon. Avery noted this. She understood with a new kind of understanding that the weapon was not going to be holstered for a while. That was her life now, for the foreseeable future, or for however long. They came up a different set of stairs, not the pantry stairs. These came up into a small room off the library, paneled in dark wood, and Luca did not take her into the library. He took her out through a side door onto the terrace, onto the gravel of the side drive, into the cool air of the early night. The lawn was full of men, not fighting, standing, moving, doing the quiet, efficient work of the aftermath. There were bodies, 3, 4, she did not let herself count, being covered with canvas by 2 men in dark coats. There were 3 more men on their knees in a line against the back of one of the SUVs, their hands behind their heads. One of them was bleeding from the mouth. One of them had his eyes closed. The third was staring at the gravel as if the gravel contained an answer. None of the 3 were Dario. Dario was standing off to the side. He was alive. He was unhurt. He was, she saw with a slow dawning realization, not being held. He was standing with his hands in his pockets, and there was a man next to him, Sandro, the young guard from that morning. And Sandro was not pointing a weapon at him. Sandro was simply standing near him, a companion, or the appearance of one. Dario looked up when they came out. Luca, he said. His voice was not warm now, but it was not afraid either. It was the voice of a man who had just watched something he had not expected and who had not fully finished processing it. Dario, I was not... I know. You know. I know, Dario. I have known for 90 seconds. Before that, I did not. I apologize for the 90 seconds. Dario exhaled. It was a long, slow breath. Something in his shoulders came down an inch. Dio, he said softly. Who? Luca said. Dario was quiet. Who? Dario. Giacomo. Luca looked at him. Dario lifted a hand tiredly and gestured across the lawn. At the far end, past the second SUV, 2 of Luca's men were standing over something on the ground. The something on the ground was small. It was, Avery realized, a body, a small one. Giacomo. He has been feeding me wrong names for 6 months, Dario said, quietly. Whispers, small ones. Luca is restless. Luca is tired. Luca has been moving money without telling you. I did not believe all of it, but I believed enough that when I sat at your table tonight, I was angrier than I should have been. You saw. I know you saw. I saw. He was the one who put the text in front of me. He was the one who said, this is not a random message, Dario. This is tradecraft. He wanted me to move on her. Luca's hand, which had been on the small of Avery's back, tightened slightly and then relaxed. So he could do what? Luca said. So he could kill us both in one night. You, in your anger at me for coming for the girl. me in the crossfire, or me by his own hand in the confusion, then walk out with the house. Dario closed his eyes. He has been placing men on the grounds for 2 weeks. I did not know. He was on my payroll. I paid him to watch for betrayal, and I paid for my own. Dario. Yes. Look at me. Dario opened his eyes. I'm not going to kill you tonight. I know. I'm not going to kill you tomorrow either. I know that also. I'm going to let you walk to your car. Your remaining men will drive you home. You will sleep in your own bed. And in the morning, at 8, you will call me. And we will begin a very long conversation about what your organization and my organization are going to do differently for the next 20 years. Do you understand? Yes, Luca. Because I have known you 40 years. Yes. Because your father was my father's friend. Yes. Because you sat with my mother. Dario's eyes were wet. He did not wipe them. Yes, he said. Go home, Dario. Luca? Go home. Dario looked at Avery. For a long second. The look was different than it had been at dinner. It was not evaluating. It was not calculating. It was the look of an older man at a younger woman who had just, without meaning to, without even understanding what she had done, broken open a wound inside an organization that had been festering for 6 months. Kara, he said, very quietly. I'm sorry. She did not know what to say. Thank you, she said. It was the wrong thing. It was also, somehow, the only thing. Dario nodded. He turned. Sandra walked him, at a polite distance, to the remaining SUV. The men on their knees, his men, the ones who had not been Giacomo's, were allowed up and loaded into the car. Doors closed. The convoy, reduced to 1, moved slowly down the drive, through the open gate, and into the dark. Avery watched it go. She realized she was shaking. Fine, small tremors from somewhere at the base of her spine. Luca felt it. His hand on her back slid up to cup the back of her neck. The gesture, she realized, was now an instinct between them, and it had stopped being choreography sometime in the last 40 minutes. Inside, he said. Okay. You need something warm. Okay. And a drink. Yeah. And probably to sit down. Yeah. He walked her back inside. The house was not quiet. Men were moving, lifting, cleaning, carrying. A woman from the staff was crying in a doorway, and another woman was holding her. Stefano, his left hand wrapped in a towel that was more red than white, was sitting on the bottom step of the main staircase, and he looked up when they passed, and he nodded once at Luca, and Luca nodded back. A full conversation, that nod. Avery did not try to translate it. They went upstairs. Not to the bedroom, to the small sitting room off the library. Luca sat her in an armchair. He poured her a glass of something brown that she drank without tasting. He put a blanket over her legs. He sat across from her, his elbows on his knees, his hands dangling, and for the first time since she had known him, he looked, honestly and simply, tired. You saved my life, he said. She blinked. What? You did. Tonight. At dinner. When I did not know yet. I didn't do anything. You did. Giacomo's plan was to wait until Dario left, then come at me in the night. But he moved tonight because something in your story at dinner convinced him he could. You were too good, Avery. You were too honest. He saw Dario relaxing with you. He saw Dario charmed. And he understood very fast that if he waited until morning, he was going to lose his pretext. Dario was going to leave here believing in you, and in me, and the whispers were going to stop working. So he moved early, before he was ready, before his second shooter was in position. That is why we are alive. That's not on purpose. No, it is better than on purpose. It is true. She stared at him. Luca. Yes. I want to go home. A small pause. Okay, he said. I don't know where home is anymore. That's the problem. My apartment isn't home anymore. It hasn't been for maybe a long time, but it is definitely not home after tonight. No, I don't know what I'm supposed to do tomorrow. I don't know how to eat breakfast tomorrow. I don't know how to see the color red and not think about, she gestured vaguely at her own dress, about any of this. I don't know how to look at my sister's face and not lie to her. I don't know how to be a person who has been in the room when 5 people were shot. 6. Luca, sorry. I don't know how to do any of this. You're doing it now. No, I'm sitting in an armchair. You are sitting in an armchair and you are having a conversation. That is doing it. She laughed. It was a terrible, croaking laugh. You are a very strange man. So you have said. Luca? Yes. I'm going to say a thing. All right? And you are not going to say anything back tonight, okay? You can say something tomorrow, or the day after, or never. I do not need you to say something tonight. He looked at her. Okay. I don't know what you are. I don't know what this is. I don't know if any of what I feel about you right now is real, or if it's just that you have kept me alive for 30 hours and my brain has decided that makes you the most important thing in the world. That happens to people. I have a psych minor from a school I could not afford. I know it happens. But she swallowed. But I know that I have been with a man for 2 years who, on his best day, made me feel small, who on his worst day made me feel stupid, who never once in 2 years looked at me the way you looked at me in the drawing room tonight when I came down the stairs, who never once said, "Promise me I will try," instead of "Promise me I will." And I don't know if you are a good man. You told me yourself that you are not. I believe you, actually. I think you are a very dangerous man who has decided, for reasons I don't completely understand, to be careful with me. That's not the same as good, I know that. No, he said, it is not. But you have been careful with me, and nobody else has, in a very long time. She set the drink down. So, don't say anything yet, she said. He did not say anything. Tomorrow, I want to call my sister and my mother. I want you to get me back on a phone that is mine. I want to tell them that I am not dead. I want to tell them I had the worst night of my life. And I do not want to tell them why, but I want to tell them that. And then I want to sleep for a week. In that bed upstairs. I don't care about geometry. You can sleep wherever you want to sleep. I'm going to sleep in that bed for a week. Okay, he said. I said don't say anything. You said don't say anything about the other part. You did not say anything about the bed. The bed is logistics. She laughed. It was a real laugh this time. Something in her chest actually moved. Okay, she said. Okay. Logistics. Avery. Yeah. One thing. Okay. He leaned forward. When you said you do not know if it is real, he said, I'm going to let you figure that out on your own time, in your own way. But I want you to know, from me, now, because I will not bring it up again unless you do, that I am not confused. I know the difference between a woman I am grateful to and a woman I am afraid to lose. Tonight, when I did not see you come out of the parlor for 32 seconds, I learned the difference. Do you understand what I am telling you? She looked at him. Yes, she said. Good. Luca. Yes. Thank you. For what? For not saying it any fancier than that. He almost smiled. I am not a fancy man, he said. You live in a mansion and wear handmade shoes. That is not fancy. That is just expensive. She laughed. She leaned back in the chair. The blanket was heavy. Bruno had come in at some point and laid down on her feet, and she had not noticed. Outside, somewhere down the drive, a siren started. Not a police siren, something private, some signal from Luca's own people that the perimeter had been reset. The house groaned the way old houses groan when the night settles into them. Marta was in the kitchen again. She could hear, faintly, the clink of a pot. The world had, for a few hours, forgotten to turn. It was turning again. They stayed in the house for a week. Kat came up on the 3rd day. Luca had not fought her. He had sent a car for her, an unremarkable one, and he had been in the library when she arrived, so that her first 10 minutes in the house belonged to Avery only. Kat had marched through the front door with the set jaw of a woman prepared to dismantle a kidnapper, and had stopped, flat, at the sight of Avery coming down the stairs in jeans and one of Marta's wool cardigans and bare feet, a bowl of pasta in one hand and Bruno at her heel. Oh, hell no, Kat had said. Kat! No, no, Avery, no. This is a whole house. I know. That dog is a horse. I know. Where is the man? Where is he? I have things to say to him. He had come out. He had, at Avery's urging, not worn the suit. He had worn a sweater, which was maybe the most unsettling thing Avery had ever seen him wear. He had shaken Kat's hand. He had said, "Hello, Kat. I'm Luca. Avery has told me almost nothing about you because she has been busy, but she has spoken of you with enough warmth that I understand I should be at least a little afraid of you." Kat had stared at him. "I am," she had said slowly, "at least a little afraid of you." "That is reasonable." "Are you going to hurt my sister?" "No." "On purpose?" "No." "By accident?" A pause. "I will try very hard not to," Luca said. Kat had looked at him for a long moment. "Promise me I will try," she had muttered, and looked sideways at Avery. And Avery had shrugged, and Kat had sighed an enormous sigh and said, "Fine, fine. I am going to need the Wi-Fi password and 3 full days of your time, Avery, and then we are renegotiating everything. Where's the kitchen? I was told there is a woman who feeds you here." Marta had loved Kat on sight. Kat had loved Marta within 4 minutes. By the end of the weekend, Kat had stolen Marta's recipe for the soup and was texting Avery from Hoboken asking where to buy cannellini beans in bulk. That was the first thing Avery understood in that first week, that her life was not going to be torn in half. It was going to be stretched, a little farther, a little thinner. But the people in it did not have to be left behind. Luca had not asked her to leave them behind. Luca had, instead, made room. Her mother came up 2 weeks later. Her mother was harder. Her mother sat in the drawing room with her hands folded and asked Luca questions in the clipped, polite tone of a woman who had raised 2 daughters on her own in New Jersey and had survived a husband who had not been worth surviving. She did not eat. She did not drink. She watched him. She watched his face when he answered her, and she watched his hands, and she watched how he looked at Avery when he did not think he was being observed. And at the end of 3 hours, she had stood up and said, "Well, he is certainly not Marcus." "Ma, that is not an insult, Avery. That is the highest praise I am capable of at this time. Come help me find my coat." In the hallway, out of earshot, her mother had stopped her. "Baby." "Yeah. This man is dangerous." "I know." Not in the way Marcus was dangerous. Marcus was dangerous in small ways that are easy to miss. This man is dangerous in large ways that are impossible to miss. Do you understand the difference? "Yes." "Are you sure?" "Yes, Ma." Her mother had looked at her for a long time. Then she had put a hand on Avery's cheek. It was the same hand that had put bandages on her knees at 9 and had brushed her hair before her senior prom and had held her the night before her college graduation when she had cried for reasons she could not explain. "Okay," her mother had said, "then you watch him like I watched your father for the first 20 years. You don't relax. You don't assume. You keep your eyes open, and if one day you see a thing that makes your stomach turn, you call me, and I will get in my car. Do you hear me?" "Yes, Ma." "You are my good girl." "Yes, Ma." "But you are also a grown woman, and I have to let you be both." Her mother had driven away in her old blue Subaru that afternoon, and Avery had stood on the gravel of the driveway and watched the taillights disappear, and Luca had come up behind her and put his arms around her shoulders, and neither of them had said anything. The organization continued. That was the thing Avery had, in the quieter weeks, come to understand. Luca did not stop being what he was. There were mornings when he left very early and came back very late. There were nights when the front gate was sealed for reasons nobody explained. There were calls, in the library, that she learned to walk past without listening. She did not ask. He did not offer. That was the arrangement, not the tawdry kind Marta had hinted at that first day, but a quieter one, built between the two of them in small, honest pieces. He told her, on a Sunday 3 months in, about the imports. Some of them. Not all. He told her, on a Tuesday in August, about a man who had died because of a decision he had made 8 years ago. He did not excuse himself. He simply told her, in the slow, quiet voice of a man who had been carrying the information and who had decided that she was now someone he could carry it with. She did not say it was all right. She did not say it was not all right. She listened. She sat on the floor in front of his chair, and she listened to the whole thing. And when he was done, she had put her head against his knee, and he had put his hand in her hair, and they had stayed like that for a long time. She did not forgive him the things that were not hers to forgive. That was not what he asked. That was the part Marcus, in 2 years, had never understood. that forgiveness was not the same as love, that a person could be loved without being absolved, and that the two things did not have to sit in the same seat. She stayed. That was the whole answer in the end. She stayed. She kept her work. She told her clients she had moved upstate. She kept designing covers, for memoirs, for romances, for a crime novelist in Portland who never knew that the woman making her jackets lived with a man whose name made bars in Bensonhurst go quiet. She set up a studio and a sunroom on the east side of the house. Bruno slept under her desk. Marta brought her espresso at 4 without asking. On Tuesdays, Kat drove up from Hoboken and they ate in the kitchen and talked about nothing that mattered and everything that did. Dario came to dinner, sometimes. Alone, mostly. Not with men. The dinners were shorter than the first one. Nobody told stories about drivers. He had stopped looking at her like a painting somebody had hung on the wrong wall. He had started looking at her like a younger sister he was extremely bewildered to have acquired, and he brought flowers, always, for Marta, never for Avery. And the flowers were always the same kind of yellow roses, and Marta, who would die before she admitted it, put them in a vase in the kitchen and pretended they had always been there. There was an evening in late October when the house was very still and the grounds were going red with autumn, and Avery was sitting on the stone steps of the terrace with a cup of tea and Bruno beside her. Luca came out in shirt sleeves. The air was cool. His breath made a small cloud when he sat down next to her. They did not speak for a long time. Then she said, without turning, "I was thinking about the text. The text. The text I sent. That night." "Ah. You know what's strange? Tell me." "I don't regret it." He was quiet. "I should," she said. "By any sane metric, I should. I upended my own life. I almost got shot in a dining room. I upended your life. I dragged my mother out of Tampa to meet a man she does not, truthfully, fully approve of. That text is the single most destructive thing I have ever done. I don't regret it." "No." "Is that wrong?" He thought about it. "I do not think it is," he said. "The text did not create any of this. The text revealed it. Giacomo was already in the house before you wrote a single word. My life was already on a bad slope. I was already 48 and alone and eating dinner in a dining room that had not had a laugh in it since my mother died. You did not cause these things. You walked into the middle of them, and you made them," he stopped, looking for the word. "You made them visible, which is what made them solvable." She looked at him. "That is almost a fancy sentence, Luca." "Yes. For a man who is not fancy. I have been told I am improving." She leaned her shoulder into his. He leaned back. Bruno sighed the dog sigh of a dog whose humans had decided not to go inside yet, and therefore he would not be getting dinner on time, and therefore life was very difficult indeed. "Luca." "Yes. I'm going to stay." "I know. I know I've been staying. I'm going to stay. Not for safety. Not because it is the logical option. Not because there is a man somewhere who might still be looking for me. I'm going to stay because this is where I want to be." He was quiet for a long moment. "Avery?" "Yeah. I have spent most of my adult life," he said, "being certain I was going to die in a room I did not choose." "Oh. I am not going to die in a room I did not choose." "Luca, I am telling you this because I want you to know what it means that you are staying. Not because it obligates you, because I would like you to understand." She put her tea down. She put her hand on his face. She kissed him. Not for an audience, not for Dario, not for the house staff, not for choreography. She kissed him the way a woman kisses a man when she is finally, after a long time, telling the truth with her whole body. He kissed her back. It was not a perfect kiss. She was laughing, a little, into his mouth, and his hand was in her hair, and he pulled it slightly by accident, and she said, "Ow," and he said, "Sorry," and they had to start over, and the second kiss was better, and the third kiss, which was the one that mattered, was the best of all, because by then neither of them was trying to get it right. Bruno groaned. They laughed. Into each other. Forehead to forehead, on the cold stone of a terrace, in a house that had not been built for them, but had somehow, over 6 months, made room. A bad text. One wrong number. One angry thumb on a glowing screen in a bathroom in Alphabet City. Avery Cole had meant to burn her life down. What she had not understood, that night on the fire escape with a glass of cheap wine and a broken heart, was that sometimes a fire in the wrong place is the only thing that clears the ground. Sometimes the worst night of a person's life is also the last night of a life they were never going to be brave enough to leave on their own. Sometimes the wrong number is a door, and the door has always been there. And the only person who could open it was the person on the other side who had been waiting, quietly, patiently, for a reason that did not yet have a name. She had pressed send. And the world had, for a few months, been on fire. And this was the part nobody had warned her about, the part she would one day tell her niece about, in a much softer voice. Over many years, the fire had gone out, and in its place, when the smoke cleared, there was a house in the hills, with a dog under the table, and a woman in the kitchen who made soup, and a man in a sweater who did not lie to her about what he was, and who did not, for the rest of their long, strange life together, ask her to be anything she was not. She had sent one text to the wrong man. It had turned out, in the end, to be the only right thing she had done in 2 years. And if there was a lesson in any of it, Avery Cole would tell you, years later, sitting on that same terrace on some other autumn afternoon, it was this: the wrong message, sent in the right moment of a life you had stopped loving, was not a mistake. It was a door. Most people walked past it. Most people, terrified of what they might find on the other side, pretended the door had never been there at all. She had knocked. Someone had answered, and nothing. Not a convoy of black SUVs, not a traitor with a rifle, not a cheating ex with a bouquet of grocery store carnations, not a man named Dario who knew how to tell a story, had ever been able to put her back on the side of the door she had come from. That was the story. That was the whole story. She had been a woman who stopped once on a highway for a stranger, and a stranger once had stopped for her.